She slipped him the note knowing it might kill her. Don't drink it. Leave now. But when his fingers locked around her wrist like a vice, his eyes dark with lethal suspicion, she realized saving a monster's life might be the most dangerous thing she'd ever done. Before we dive into this emotional journey, if you're enjoying these stories of unexpected love and redemption, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change how you see the world. Now, let's begin. The Crimson Lounge smelled like money and secrets. Isabel Morrison, Belle to the few who dared use her first name, had learned to read both. The money came in tailored suits and Italian leather, in the clink of platinum credit cards against marble, in bottles of bourbon that cost more than her monthly rent. The secrets were harder, hidden in sidelong glances, hushed conversations that stopped when she approached, the kind of tension that made the air itself feel dangerous. She'd been pouring drinks here for 3 years. Long enough to know when to smile, when to disappear, and most importantly, when to forget everything she'd seen. Tonight, the bar was busy but controlled. Saturday nights usually were. Belle moved through her routine with practiced efficiency. Twist the cocktail shaker, strain the whiskey sour, slide the martini across polished wood with a practiced smile that never reached her eyes. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, her white blouse crisp and professional. She looked like any other bartender in any other upscale establishment. But her eyes never stopped moving. Exit behind the bar, through the kitchen. Exit by the restrooms. Main entrance, 2 exposed. Fire exit by the VIP section. She'd memorized every escape route her first week. Old habits, born from a past she tried not to think about. Belle. Her manager, Richard, appeared at her elbow. His cologne was too strong, his smile too wide. We've got a VIP coming in tonight. Very important. You'll handle him personally. Her stomach tightened, but her expression remained neutral. Of course. I mean it. Richard's voice dropped. This one's different. Be professional. Be polite. Don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. That was code. Code for dangerous. Code for the kind of clientele that made the Crimson Lounge profitable and kept people like Belle employed, and silent. Understood, she said. Richard nodded and disappeared into his office. Belle exhaled slowly, her hands steady as she wiped down the bar. Around her, the lounge hummed with conversation and low jazz. Couples leaned close in leather booths. Business associates discussed deals that would never appear on paper. In the corner, a woman in a red dress laughed at something her companion said, the sound brittle and false. Belle had learned to spot the fakes. The forced smiles. The desperate gamblers betting on the wrong horses. The mistresses pretending to be wives. The criminals pretending to be legitimate. This whole place was pretend. She glanced at the clock, 10:47 p.m. Whoever this VIP was, he'd be here soon. Belle's apartment was a 15-minute walk from the lounge, a studio in a building that had seen better decades. When she got home each night, usually around 3 a.m., she'd lock 3 separate locks, check the fire escape, and only then would she let herself breathe. The apartment was sparse. A bed, a small table, a kitchenette she barely used. No photographs on the walls. No personal touches. Nothing that said Isabel Morrison lives here. Nothing that said anyone lived here at all. Except for one thing, on her nightstand face down, was a photograph she never looked at but couldn't throw away. A family of 4, smiling at a beach somewhere warm. A mother, a father, a teenage girl, and a young boy with a gap-toothed grin. That girl was dead. She died 8 years ago, the moment she'd watched her family bleed out on their kitchen floor. Belle Morrison was what crawled out of that girl's grave. She shook her head, dispelling the memory. Focus. Stay present. Stay invisible. A customer signaled for another drink. She moved to help him, her movements fluid and automatic. Across the city, in a penthouse office that overlooked the glittering downtown skyline, Lorenzo Volkov sat at the head of a table surrounded by men who feared him. As they should. At 34, Lorenzo had built an empire on the bones of his enemies. The Volkov family had controlled the city's underworld for 3 generations, but it was Lorenzo who'd modernized it, expanded it, made it untouchable. Drugs, weapons, protection, political influence. If it made money and lived in the shadows, Lorenzo's hand was in it. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair swept back from a face that women called handsome and men called dangerous. His eyes were gray, the color of winter storms, and when he looked at you, you felt weighed, measured, and often found wanting. Tonight, he wore a black suit tailored to perfection, a watch that cost more than most people's cars, and an expression of carefully controlled boredom as his lieutenant Victor droned on about expansion opportunities. The South District is ripe, Victor was saying. The Italians are weak after Cardone's arrest. We move in, we could control the whole. The Italians aren't weak, Lorenzo interrupted, his voice quiet but sharp. They're wounded. Different thing. Wounded animals are unpredictable. Victor fell silent. No one interrupted Lorenzo. We wait, Lorenzo continued. Let them tear themselves apart fighting for succession. Then we make our move. He glanced at Marco, his cousin, who sat to his right. You agree? Marco nodded quickly. Too quickly. Yes. Absolutely. Lorenzo's eyes lingered on his cousin for a moment longer than necessary. Marco had been nervous lately. Jumpy. Lorenzo made a mental note to have him watched. Trust no one. Not even family. Especially not family. There's something else, Victor said. We've been getting reports about the Crimson Lounge. High-end place, clean reputation, but we know they're laundering for the Bratva. Lorenzo's interest sharpened. The Russian Bratva had been pushing into his territory for months. Small moves, testing boundaries. It was time to push back. I'll handle it personally, Lorenzo said. His men exchanged glances. Lorenzo rarely handled things personally anymore. He had people for that. Boss, is that necessary? Victor asked carefully. Lorenzo's smile was cold. I want them to know I'm watching. Send word. I'll be there tonight. The call came at 10:55 p.m. Richard emerged from his office, pale and sweating despite the air conditioning. He's coming. Now. 5 minutes. Belle's pulse quickened, but her hands remained steady. Understood. The other bartender, Kyle, shot her a sympathetic look. Good luck. She didn't need luck. She needed to be invisible, forgettable, and gone the moment her shift ended. At 11:02 p.m., the energy in the room shifted. Belle felt it before she saw it, a ripple of tension, conversations dropping to whispers, heads turning toward the entrance. Even the jazz seemed to soften, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Then he walked in. Lorenzo Volkov. Belle didn't know his name yet, but she knew what he was the moment she saw him. Power radiated from him like heat, and the three men flanking him, all armed, all alert, made it clear this wasn't a social visit. He was tall, imposing, with dark eyes that swept the room with calculated precision. His expression was unreadable, carved from stone. Everything about him said danger, from the way he moved, controlled, predatory, to the way people unconsciously leaned away as he passed. Richard rushed to greet him, stumbling over pleasantries. Lorenzo ignored him, his gaze moving across the bar until it landed on Belle. For one breathless second, their eyes met. Gray locked with green. Cold met careful. Then he looked away, dismissing her as irrelevant, and took a seat at the bar. Belle's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced her expression to remain neutral. Just another customer. Just another dangerous man in a city full of them. But as she walked toward him, every instinct screamed that this was different. This man was different. Good evening, she said, her voice professional and distant. What can I get for you? Lorenzo didn't answer immediately. He was looking at her again, really looking, the kind of scrutiny that felt like he was peeling back layers, searching for weaknesses. Bourbon, he said finally. His voice was deep, textured with an accent she couldn't place. Pappy Van Winkle. Neat. Of course he drank bourbon that cost $300 a glass. Right away, Belle said. She turned to prepare the drink, aware of his eyes still on her. Her hands didn't shake as she reached for the bottle. They never did when it mattered, but something about his presence made the air feel thinner, harder to breathe. Behind her, she heard one of his men whisper something. Lorenzo's quiet response, not yet. Not yet what? Belle pushed the question away. Don't ask. Don't care. Pour the drink, take the tip, forget his face. She was reaching for a glass when she saw it. Luca, one of the regular bartenders, a guy who'd worked here for 5 years, was preparing something at the other end of the bar. His movements were too careful, too deliberate. He glanced over his shoulder, checking if anyone was watching. Belle's instincts flared. Something's wrong. She pretended to search for a garnish, using the movement to watch Luca from the corner of her eye. That's when she saw it, the slight tilt of his hand, the flash of a small vial disappearing into his palm, the almost imperceptible moment when he tilted something into the glass of bourbon he was pouring. The glass meant for Lorenzo Volkov. Belle's blood turned to ice. Poison. That's poison. Every rational thought screamed at her to look away, to pretend she hadn't seen, to let whatever was about to happen without her involvement. She'd learned that lesson in blood. Getting involved meant dying. Meant watching everyone you loved die. Don't do anything. But then Luca placed the glass on a tray, and Belle watched him start toward Lorenzo's section of the bar, and something in her chest cracked open. Not again. I can't watch another person die. Not when I can stop it. Her hands moved before her brain caught up. She grabbed a cocktail napkin, scrawled 3 sentences with a pen that barely worked. Don't drink it. Smile and leave now. Her heart was trying to break through her ribs. This was insane. This was suicide. But she was already moving, already sliding the folded napkin beneath the coaster as she placed Lorenzo's legitimate bourbon in front of him. Your drink, sir, she said, her voice somehow steady. Lorenzo's hand moved toward the glass. Belle's pulse roared in her ears. He paused, his fingers hovering over the coaster. His eyes dropped to the small edge of white paper visible beneath it. Time fractured. She watched his expression shift, barely, just a flicker of something in those cold gray eyes. Confusion. Then calculation. He pulled the napkin free, unfolded it with deliberate slowness. Read it. Belle's throat closed. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. The entire bar seemed to recede into white noise. Lorenzo's eyes lifted from the note and locked onto hers. They weren't cold anymore. They were molten, dangerous, searching her face with an intensity that made her want to run. Smile and leave, she'd written. Instead, his hand shot out like a striking snake. His fingers clamped around her wrist, hard, unyielding, a vice that promised she wasn't going anywhere. Who, he said quietly, his voice deadly soft, sent you? Belle's world tilted. Every eye in the bar turned toward them. And in the back of her mind, one thought echoed. I should have let him drink it. What would you do if saving someone's life meant losing your own freedom? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you'd risk for a stranger. Belle's wrist burned where his fingers gripped her, not from pain, though his hold was iron, but from the sheer intensity of contact. She couldn't remember the last time someone had touched her. She'd made sure of it. Touch meant connection, and connection meant vulnerability. Now this stranger, this dangerous stranger, held her like she was the threat. Her voice caught. She forced herself to breathe, to think. Stay calm. Don't panic. No one sent me. His eyes narrowed. Up close, they were even more unsettling, gray like winter ice, but with something burning underneath. Intelligence. Suspicion. And something else she couldn't name. People don't risk their lives for strangers, Lorenzo said, his accent curling around the words. Not without a reason. So I'll ask again, who sent you? Around them, the bar had gone silent. Belle could feel eyes on them, patrons trying not to stare, staff frozen mid-motion, and Lorenzo's men, already moving closer, hands drifting toward concealed weapons. Her heart slammed against her ribs, but she kept her voice level. Let go of me. Answer the question. I am answering it. Belle met his gaze, refusing to flinch. No one sent me. I saw, she stopped, suddenly aware of how many people were listening. How many ears? Lorenzo's thumb pressed against her pulse point. She knew he could feel her heartbeat, racing and wild. You saw what? His voice dropped lower, intimate and threatening all at once. Belle's gaze flicked past him to Luca, who stood frozen at the other end of the bar, his face drained of color. The poison drink sat on his tray, untouched, condensation sliding down the glass like tears. Lorenzo followed her gaze. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Smile and leave, Belle whispered urgently. Please. You need to leave now. For a heartbeat, she thought he might listen. Thought some part of him might recognize the genuine terror in her voice, the desperate truth in her eyes. Instead, he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who just spotted prey trying to run. You know what I think? Lorenzo said conversationally, though his grip never loosened. I think you're either the bait or the distraction. Either way, he stood abruptly, pulling her with him. You're coming with me. Wait, no, Belle tried to pull back, but he was already moving, dragging her toward the back of the bar with a strength that made resistance futile. Boss. One of his men stepped forward, hand inside his jacket. Victor. Clear the office. Now. Lorenzo's command was absolute. Everything happened too fast. Victor disappeared through the door marked employees only. Belle stumbled, her heels catching on the floor as Lorenzo hauled her forward. She saw Richard's stricken face, saw Kyle reaching for his phone, saw the other patrons suddenly very interested in their drinks. And she saw Luca. He was backing away from the bar, the tray trembling in his hands, his eyes wide with a kind of fear that came from knowing you were already dead. Please, Belle gasped as Lorenzo kicked open the office door. You don't understand. Then explain. He shoved her inside, released her wrist, and in one fluid motion, drew a gun from beneath his jacket. Belle's breath stopped. The weapon was matte black, compact, and currently pointed at her chest. I saved your life, she said, hating how her voice shook. That's all I did. No one does anything without a reason. Lorenzo moved to the door, locked it. You slipped me a note. You warned me about my own drink. That means you either knew it was poisoned, or you're working with whoever poisoned it. Either way. The door exploded inward. Wood splintered. The lock shattered. Luca burst through, wild-eyed and desperate, his own weapon drawn, a small pistol that shook in his trembling hands. Lorenzo, Mr. Volkov, I can explain. Time moved like honey. Belle saw Lorenzo's body shift, saw the cold calculation replace any hint of humanity in his expression. Saw his gun swing from her to Luca with terrifying precision. Luca. Lorenzo's voice was almost gentle. Put the gun down. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Luca's finger twitched on the trigger. Sweat poured down his face. They promised, if I just did this one thing, they'd clear my debts. My daughter's medical bills, I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Lorenzo said. Please. Please, I'll tell you everything, just let me go. Let me disappear. You'll never see me again. Lorenzo tilted his head, considering. Who hired you? I don't know. I swear to God, I don't know. Some guy came to my apartment, knew everything about me, about my daughter's cancer, about how much I owed. He gave me the vial, told me when you'd be here, what you'd order. That's all I know. Belle's mind raced. Luca had a daughter. A sick daughter. He wasn't a killer, he was desperate. Trapped. Like I was once. Like I still am. Lorenzo. She spoke before she could stop herself. He's telling the truth. Let him. Quiet. Lorenzo didn't look at her. Luca. The vial. Where did you get it? Luca's hand shook harder. My pocket. Left side. I'll get it. Don't move. Lorenzo's gun never wavered. Victor. The door opened. Victor stepped in, assessed the situation in a glance, drew his own weapon. Search him, Lorenzo ordered. Victor moved forward. Luca's panic spiked, visible in every trembling muscle. No, wait, I'll cooperate, I just. His gun swung toward Victor. 3 things happened simultaneously. Lorenzo fired. Belle screamed. Luca collapsed, blood blooming across his shoulder. No. Belle lunged forward, instinct overriding self-preservation. She dropped to her knees beside Luca, pressing her hands against the wound. Blood, hot and slick, poured between her fingers. You shot him. He was surrendering. He pointed a weapon at my lieutenant. Lorenzo's voice was arctic. That's not surrendering. Luca groaned, his face gray with shock and pain. Belle grabbed bar towels from a shelf, wadded them against the wound. You're okay. Stay with me. You're going to be okay. My daughter, Luca gasped. Please. Someone has to take care of. Shut up, Belle said fiercely. You're going to take care of her yourself. Just breathe. Lorenzo crouched beside them. He reached into Luca's pocket, withdrew a small glass vial half full of clear liquid. Held it up to the light. Ricin, he said. Professional. Expensive. Whoever wanted me dead paid well. He pocketed the vial and stood. Victor. Get him to Dr. Kozlov. Make sure he lives long enough to give us names. Victor nodded, already pulling out his phone. Lorenzo turned to Belle. You. Up. She looked up at him, her hand still pressed against Luca's wound, her white blouse now ruined with blood. He needs a hospital. He'll get medical attention. You need to come with me. I'm not going anywhere with you. Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. That wasn't a request. Belle stood slowly, her legs unsteady. She was covered in blood, Luca's blood, and her hands wouldn't stop shaking. I don't know anything. I just saw him put something in your drink. That's all. Then you won't mind answering a few questions. Lorenzo gestured to Victor. Take care of this. Clean. Quiet. No police. Boss, Victor hesitated. What about her? Lorenzo looked at Belle like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. A problem that didn't fit his understanding of how the world worked. She comes with me, he said finally. I have rights, Belle said, hearing the desperation creeping into her voice. You can't just. Rights. Lorenzo's laugh was bitter. You think you have rights? You're either involved in an assassination attempt on my life, or you're a witness to one. Either way, you don't get to walk away until I know which. He moved toward her. Belle backed up until she hit the wall. I saved you, she said, her voice breaking. I risked everything to warn you, and this is. Why? The question was sudden, sharp. Lorenzo stepped closer, invading her space, his presence overwhelming. Why did you risk everything? You don't know me. I'm nothing to you. So why? Belle's throat closed. Because she was tired of watching people die. Because she'd stood frozen once before and lost everything. Because some broken part of her still believed that good mattered, even in a world drowning in darkness. But she couldn't say any of that. Because it was the right thing to do, she whispered. Lorenzo stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked her more than the gun, more than the violence. He laughed. Not cruel. Not mocking. Just, genuinely surprised. The right thing, he repeated. Do you know how long it's been since someone said that to me with a straight face? Let me go, Belle said. Please. I don't know anything else. I can't help you. You already did. Lorenzo's hand shot out again, but this time, instead of grabbing her wrist, his fingers closed around her upper arm. Gentle, but unyielding. And until I know who's trying to kill me and why you got involved, you're the most valuable asset I have. He started pulling her toward the door. Belle dug her heels in. This is kidnapping. Yes, Lorenzo agreed. It is. I'll scream. I'll fight. You'll come quietly if you want Luca's daughter to keep receiving treatment. His voice was calm, matter of fact. I own 3 hospitals in this city. 1 phone call, and her cancer care stops. Or, he paused at the door. You cooperate, answer my questions, and I'll make sure she gets the best oncologist's money can buy. Your choice. Belle's world tilted. You'd let a child die? No. Lorenzo met her eyes. But I need you to believe I would. So, are you coming quietly, or do I make that phone call? She hated him. In that moment, she hated him with every fiber of her being. But she also knew he was right. She'd believe he'd do it. Men like him didn't bluff. I'll come, she said, the words tasting like ash. Smart girl. Lorenzo opened the door. Outside, chaos had erupted. Police sirens in the distance, staff shouting, patrons streaming toward exits. One of Lorenzo's men appeared. Boss, we need to leave. Now. Someone called the cops. Back exit. Lorenzo pulled Belle forward. Move. They navigated through the kitchen, staff scattering at the sight of Lorenzo's gun, and emerged into a dark alley where a black SUV idled, engine running. The rear door opened. Lorenzo pushed Belle inside, then climbed in after her. Drive, he ordered. The vehicle lurched forward. Belle grabbed the door handle, thinking wildly about jumping out, but Lorenzo's hand closed over hers. Don't, he said quietly. She turned to face him. In the dim light from passing street lamps, his face was all shadows and sharp angles. Handsome, she realized distantly. Terrifying, but handsome. Where are you taking me? She asked. Somewhere safe. Safe for who? The corner of his mouth twitched. Good question. They drove in silence for several minutes. Belle watched the familiar streets give way to unfamiliar ones, heading toward the industrial district. Her mind spun through scenarios: escape, negotiation, survival. You're not going to hurt me, she said suddenly. Lorenzo raised an eyebrow. No. No. Because you can't figure me out, and that bothers you. You want to know why I helped you. That means keeping me alive and conscious. He studied her for a long moment. You're smart. I like that. It'll make this easier. What will? Finding out if you're genuine, or if this is the most elaborate setup I've ever seen. Belle laughed, a sharp, slightly hysterical sound. Setup? I'm a bartender. My biggest concern 2 hours ago was whether I'd make enough in tips to cover my electric bill. Now I'm covered in blood, kidnapped by the Mafia, and apparently being accused of, what? Some grand conspiracy. The Mafia? Lorenzo's smile was cold. I prefer entrepreneur. You just shot a man. I shot a man who tried to poison me and then aimed a gun at my lieutenant. Context matters. The SUV turned onto a private road. Through the windshield, Belle saw high walls topped with security cameras, a gate that opened automatically, and beyond it, a mansion. Of course it was a mansion. 3 stories of stone and glass, lit from within, surrounded by manicured grounds and enough security to guard a small country. Welcome to my home, Lorenzo said as the vehicle stopped in the circular driveway. Belle's stomach dropped. I thought you were taking me somewhere to ask questions. I am. Here. He opened the door, stepped out, offered her his hand. She ignored it and climbed out herself, her ruined heels clicking on marble pavement. The front door opened. 2 men, both armed, both watching Belle like she was a bomb that might explode, flanked the entrance. Upstairs guest room, Lorenzo told them. Post guards. She doesn't leave without my permission. Yes, boss. Belle finally let panic crack through her composure. You can't keep me here. I can. Lorenzo turned to face her. I will. Until I have answers. I told you everything. No. He stepped closer. You told me what you saw. You haven't told me why you cared. Most people in that bar would have looked away. Hell, most people would have helped for the right price. But you. His eyes searched hers. You risked your life for a stranger. That's either incredibly noble or incredibly stupid. I need to know which. Why does it matter? The question seemed to catch him off guard. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Confusion, maybe, or the ghost of vulnerability. Because, he said slowly, no one has done something for me without wanting something in return. Not in 15 years. So either you're the first genuinely good person I've met in a decade and a half, or you're the best actor I've ever seen. And I need to know which before I decide what to do with you. Belle's breath caught. In his voice, beneath the threat and the cold authority, she heard something raw. Something almost lonely. No. Don't humanize him. He's a criminal. A killer. Don't forget that. I want to go home, she said. Eventually. After we talk. And if I refuse? Lorenzo's smile was sharp. You're already here. Refusing isn't an option. He nodded to his men. Take her upstairs. Make sure she's comfortable. Bring her whatever she needs. I need to leave, Belle said desperately. Anything else? Lorenzo corrected. He started toward the house, then paused. Looked back at her. For what it's worth, thank you. For the warning. Whether you're lying or not, whether this is a game or not, in that moment, you tried to save my life. That's not something I'll forget. Then he was gone, disappearing into the mansion, leaving Belle standing in the driveway with 2 armed guards and the crushing realization that she just traded her carefully constructed invisible life for captivity in a gilded cage. One of the guards gestured toward the door. Mississippi. This way. Belle looked up at the mansion, at the windows glowing like eyes in the darkness, and wondered if saving Lorenzo Volkov's life was the best thing she'd ever done. Or the worst mistake of her already broken existence. If someone saved your life but you couldn't trust their motives, would you let them go or keep them close? Tell me what you'd do in Lorenzo's position. The guest room was a prison disguised as luxury. Belle stood in the center of it, taking inventory with the practiced eye of someone who'd learned to assess escape routes before anything else. King-sized bed with silk sheets. Floor-to-ceiling windows, locked, she'd already checked, overlooking the grounds. An ensuite bathroom with marble counters and a shower big enough for 3 people. A walk-in closet containing clothes that definitely weren't hers but would probably fit. Everything designed for comfort. Nothing designed for freedom. She could hear them outside the door, the guards, their voices low murmurs punctuated by the occasional static burst from a radio. 2 men. Armed. Between her and any exit. Belle moved to the window, pressing her palm against the cool glass. 3 stories up. Even if she could break the window without alerting the guards, the drop would likely break her legs. And then what? Run across the grounds with 2 shattered femurs while armed men chased her? Think. There has to be a way out. But every scenario ended the same way, caught, dragged back, locked up tighter. She caught her reflection in the window glass, a ghost of a woman in a blood-stained blouse, dark hair escaping its ponytail, mascara smudged beneath green eyes that looked haunted. This is what you get for caring. For getting involved. You knew better. 8 years. 8 years of keeping her head down, staying invisible, never making waves. And one moment of conscience had destroyed everything. A knock at the door made her jump. Miss Morrison. A woman's voice, accented like Lorenzo's but softer. May I come in? Belle didn't answer. The door opened anyway. A woman in her 50s entered, carrying a tray with food and what looked like clean clothes. She had kind eyes, Belle noticed. Warm and brown, deeply lined at the corners. Her salt and pepper hair was pulled back in a neat bun. I am Katya, the woman said, setting the tray on a side table. I manage the household. Mr. Volkov asked me to bring you something to eat and, she gestured at Belle's ruined blouse. Something clean to wear. Belle crossed her arms. I don't want anything from him. Katya's expression softened with what looked like sympathy. I understand. But you should eat anyway. And change. The blood will set into the fabric if you wait much longer. Despite herself, Belle looked down at her clothes. Luca's blood had dried to a rust-brown crust. She could still smell it, copper and salt and fear. How is he? She asked quietly. The man who was shot. Alive. Dr. Kozlov is with him now. Katya moved toward the closet, pulling out a soft gray sweater and black pants. Mr. Volkov's orders were very clear, keep him alive. So he can torture him for information? Katya's hands stilled on the clothing. She turned, studying Belle with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. You think Mr. Volkov is a monster, Katya said. It wasn't a question. Isn't he? He is many things. Monster is one word for it. But, she hesitated. He is also fair. If that man tells the truth, he will be treated. His family will be protected. Mr. Volkov takes care of those who are honest with him. And those who aren't. Katya's silence was answer enough. She laid the clothes on the bed. I will leave you to change. The bathroom is through there if you wish to shower. Someone will come for you when Mr. Volkov is ready to speak with you. And if I refuse to see him? Then you will stay in this room. Katya moved toward the door, then paused. A word of advice, Miss Morrison. Mr. Volkov is not a patient man, but he is a curious one. You have done something he cannot understand, saved him without asking for anything in return. That curiosity is the only reason you are in a guest room and not a cell. Do not waste it. She left, the door locking behind her with a soft click that sounded like finality. Belle stood alone in the silent room, anger and fear warring in her chest. Then, with shaking hands, she began to undress. 3 floors below, Lorenzo Volkov stood in his study, staring at the small glass vial on his desk. Ricin. Colorless. Odorless. Deadly. If he'd taken even one sip of that bourbon, he'd be dead within hours. Agonizing hours, as the poison destroyed his cells from the inside out. No antidote. No cure. Just pain and inevitable death. And a bartender he'd never met had saved him. Why? The question had been circling his mind like a predator for the past hour. He'd replayed the moment a dozen times, her trembling hand sliding the note beneath his coaster, the fear in her eyes when he grabbed her wrist, the way she'd said please like she actually cared whether he lived or died. No one cared whether he lived or died. Not really. His men feared him, respected him, maybe even admired him, but love? Care? Those were weaknesses he'd buried with his brother. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Come. Victor entered, his expression grim. Luka's stable. Kozlov got the bullet out. He's talking. And he's telling the truth, or at least, he believes he's telling the truth. Someone approached him 3 days ago. Knew everything about his daughter's cancer, her treatment schedule, how much he owed various loan sharks. Offered to clear all his debts and pay for her treatment if he'd poison your drink. Description. Average height, average build, wore a baseball cap and sunglasses. Paid in cash. Untraceable. Victor paused. But Luka said one thing stood out. The man had an accent. Eastern European. Maybe Ukrainian. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. The Bratva. That's my guess. They've been testing our borders for months. This would be the next logical step. Take you out, create chaos in the organization, move in during the power vacuum. It made sense. Cold, calculated sense. The kind of play Lorenzo would make if positions were reversed. Increase security. All of it. I want eyes on every Bratva operative we know about. If they sneeze, I want to know about it. Lorenzo picked up the vial, held it to the light. And find out who supplied the ricin. That's specialized. Someone had to source it. Already on it. Victor shifted his weight. What about the girl? What about her? You really think she's uninvolved? That she just happened to see Luka poison your drink and decided to play hero? Lorenzo set down the vial. I don't know what I think. That's the problem. We could, Victor made a vague gesture. Encourage her to talk. If she knows more than she's saying. No. The word came out harder than Lorenzo intended. No one touches her. Not until I'm certain. Victor's eyebrows rose. Boss, with respect, you're never certain about anyone. That's what keeps you alive. He was right, of course. Lorenzo trusted no one, questioned everything, assumed betrayal until proven otherwise. It was how he'd survived 3 assassination attempts and countless betrayals. But something about Belle Morrison didn't fit his worldview. She'd been genuinely terrified when he grabbed her wrist. He'd felt her pulse hammering, seen the fear in her eyes. But beneath the fear had been something else. Defiance. Anger that he didn't believe her. As if she was insulted that he'd question her motives. Who the hell got insulted at being questioned by a man they just tried to save? Run a deep background check, Lorenzo said. Everything. Where she's from, how long she's been at the Crimson Lounge, any connections to the Bratva or rival families. Phone records, bank accounts, associates. I want to know everything about Isabel Morrison. Already in progress. Should have preliminary results by morning. Good. Lorenzo moved to the window, looking out at the grounds. Somewhere up there in the guest room, Belle was probably pacing. Planning. Hating him. He couldn't blame her. One more thing, Victor said carefully. Marco's been asking questions. About why we left the lounge so quickly, about who the girl is, why you brought her here. Marco. His cousin. Who'd been nervous lately. Who'd agreed too quickly with Lorenzo's plans. Marco. What did you tell him? Nothing. Said it was your business. Keep it that way. Lorenzo's mind was already working through possibilities. If Marco was the leak, if he was working with the Bratva. No. Family didn't betray family. That was the one rule his father had drilled into him. But father's dead, a cold voice whispered in his mind. And you know better than anyone that family is often the first to stab you in the back. Watch Marco, Lorenzo said quietly. Carefully. I want to know everyone he talks to, everywhere he goes. Victor nodded. You think he's involved? I think I trust no one. Lorenzo turned from the window. Which brings me back to our bartender. Set up a meeting. Tomorrow morning, my office. I want answers. And if she doesn't cooperate? Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. After Victor left, Lorenzo stood alone in his study, the silence pressing down like a weight. He pulled out his phone, scrolled to a number he hadn't called in years. His thumb hovered over it. Alexei. His brother's best friend. The man who'd been there when Alexei died. The man who'd helped Lorenzo become what he was today, cold, calculating, untouchable. The man who'd taught him that trust was suicide. Lorenzo put the phone away without calling. Instead, he opened a locked drawer in his desk and pulled out a photograph. Faded, creased from being folded and unfolded too many times. 2 boys, maybe 13 and 16, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera. Before the family business consumed everything. Before Lorenzo learned that the world was divided into predators and prey, and the only way to survive was to be the biggest predator of all. Before Alexei's blood soaked into the warehouse floor while Lorenzo held him, helpless and broken. He traced his brother's face with one finger. She saved me, he whispered to the photograph. A stranger saved me, and I don't know why. What would you do, little brother? Would you trust her? The photograph, of course, didn't answer. Lorenzo carefully folded it and returned it to the drawer. Then he poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon, from a different bottle, one he knew was safe, and drank it in one swallow, trying to burn away the feeling that his perfectly ordered world had just tilted on its axis. All because a green-eyed bartender had decided his life was worth saving. Belle stood in the shower for 20 minutes, letting water as hot as she could stand pound against her skin. She scrubbed Luca's blood from her hands, watched it swirl down the drain in rust-colored spirals. Scrubbed until her skin was raw and pink and she couldn't smell copper anymore. But she couldn't scrub away the memory of his face, the desperation, the fear, the resignation of a man who knew he was already dead. His daughter has cancer. He was trying to save her. And now he was shot, imprisoned, at the mercy of a man who probably didn't know the meaning of the word. Belle shut off the water and stood dripping on the marble tile, staring at her reflection in the fog-covered mirror. She looked like a stranger. A ghost. This is your fault. If you just stayed quiet, minded your business, let it happen. But she couldn't have. Even knowing what it would cost, she couldn't have watched Lorenzo Volkov die. Why? You don't know him. He's a criminal. The world would probably be better off without him. Maybe. Probably. But she'd already stood by once and watched people die. She'd learned to live with that guilt, that weight, but she couldn't add more. She couldn't become the kind of person who let death happen when she could stop it. Even if stopping it meant this. Belle dried off and dressed in the clothes Katia had left, soft, expensive, fitting perfectly in a way that made her uncomfortable. Like Lorenzo had known her size. Like he'd been prepared for this. She emerged from the bathroom and found another tray waiting. This one held tea, still steaming, and a plate of food, roasted chicken, vegetables, fresh bread. Her stomach growled despite everything. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. Poison? The thought was absurd. If Lorenzo wanted her dead, he wouldn't need poison. A bullet would be cleaner. Still she waited, watching the tea for any sign of what? Cloudiness? Discoloration? Finally, hunger won. She ate mechanically, tasting nothing, fueling her body like a machine. When she finished, she returned to the window. Outside, security lights illuminated the grounds. She could see guards patrolling in pairs, could make out the shape of what looked like guard dogs in the distance. The wall surrounding the property had to be 15 feet high, topped with, were those cameras or something sharper? You're not getting out of here, she told herself. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a strange numbness settling over everything. Like she'd used up her fear quota for the day and now she was just empty. She pulled a chair to the window and sat, watching the night, waiting for morning and whatever came next. Somewhere in this massive house, Lorenzo Volkov was probably doing the same thing, trying to figure her out, trying to fit her into his worldview where everyone wanted something, where kindness was always transactional. Good luck with that, she thought bitterly. I don't even understand myself anymore. Hours passed. The house settled into silence. The guards changed shifts at what she guessed was 2 a.m. Belle didn't sleep. She sat at the window, arms wrapped around herself, and tried not to think about the fact that she'd saved a man's life and lost her own freedom in the process. Tried not to think about Luca's daughter, waking up to find her father gone. Tried not to think about the photograph she'd left behind in her apartment, the one of her family, the people she'd failed to save. Tried not to think about the way Lorenzo's eyes had searched hers, looking for deception and finding only truth, and how that had confused him more than any lie ever could. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Belle made a decision. She'd answer his questions. Tell him everything, about her past, about why she'd warned him, about the fact that she was exactly what she appeared to be, a broken woman who tried to do one good thing. And then she'd demand her freedom. And if he refused? Well, she'd survived the death of her family. She'd survived 8 years of looking over her shoulder, of living half a life in the shadows. She'd survive this too. Whatever it took. A key turned in the lock. The door opened. One of the guards, young with a scar across his cheek, stood in the doorway. Miss Morrison. Mr. Volkov will see you now. Belle stood, straightened her borrowed clothes, and lifted her chin. Lead the way, she said. Her voice didn't shake. She was proud of that. Lorenzo's office was all dark wood and leather, books lining the walls, a massive desk dominating the center of the room. Windows behind the desk overlooked the grounds, the rising sun casting long shadows across expensive carpeting. He stood with his back to her, hands in his pockets, looking out at his empire. Sit, he said without turning around. Belle remained standing. I'd rather not. It wasn't a request. Then arrest me. Call the police. Do whatever you're going to do. But stop pretending this is a conversation between equals. That made him turn. He studied her across the space between them, and Belle noticed he looked tired. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He changed clothes, now wore dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and scattered with scars. You didn't sleep, he observed. Neither did you. The corner of his mouth twitched. Perceptive. Observant. There's a difference. He moved to his desk, gestured again at the chair across from it. Please. Sit. I'm not going to hurt you. Forgive me if I don't take your word for it. Fair. Lorenzo settled into his own chair, leaned back, steepled his fingers. Here's what I know about you, Isabel Morrison. You've worked at the Crimson Lounge for 3 years. Before that, various service jobs, waitress, barista, retail. You live alone in a studio apartment in a neighborhood that's not great but not terrible. You have no social media presence, no close friends, no family. You pay your bills on time, keep to yourself, and by all accounts, you're invisible. Belle's chest tightened. He dug into her life. Found her carefully constructed nothing. That's not against the law, she said. No. But it's unusual. Most people leave digital footprints. Photos, posts, connections. You've left nothing. His eyes narrowed. Because you're hiding. The question is, from what? That's none of your business. It became my business when you saved my life. Lorenzo leaned forward. I had my people dig deeper. Do you know what they found? Belle's pulse quickened. Don't show fear. Don't give him anything. Nothing, Lorenzo continued. Absolutely nothing before 8 years ago. It's like Isabel Morrison didn't exist before that. Which means either you're in witness protection, you changed your identity, or he paused. You're running from something so bad that you erased yourself. None of that changes what happened last night. Doesn't it? If you're running from the Bratva, from a rival family, from some past connection. I'm not. The words burst out of her, sharp and desperate. I'm not connected to any of this. I don't know anything about your world, your wars, your politics. I'm just, her voice cracked. I'm just someone who's trying to survive. Silence filled the office. Lorenzo watched her with those too perceptive gray eyes, and Belle realized she'd revealed too much. Shown too much. Who are you running from? He asked, his voice gentler now. No one. Everyone. Does it matter? It matters if it connects to the attempt on my life. It doesn't. Belle wrapped her arms around herself. I told you everything I know. I saw Luca poison your drink. I warned you. That's all. There's no conspiracy, no hidden agenda. She met his gaze. I couldn't watch another person die. Another person, Lorenzo repeated. Implying you've watched someone die before. Damn it. My family, Belle said, the words tasting like ashes. 8 years ago. Wrong place, wrong time. They died because she stopped herself. It doesn't matter. The point is, I've seen what death looks like. I've seen what it costs. And I wouldn't, stand by and let it happen again. Not when I could stop it. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. I'm sorry. For your family. Don't. Belle's laugh was bitter. Don't pretend you understand. Don't pretend you care. You're keeping me prisoner. That's not the action of someone who's sorry. I'm keeping you safe. From what? From whoever tried to kill me. Lorenzo stood, moved to the window. If the Bratva hired Luca, they know it failed. They know someone warned me. It won't take them long to figure out who. And when they do, he turned to face her. They'll come for you. To tie up loose ends. Belle's blood ran cold. She hadn't thought of that. So you're keeping me here for my own protection, she said slowly. How noble. I'm keeping you here because you saved my life, and the least I can do is make sure that decision doesn't get you killed. And how long does this protection last? Days? Weeks? Forever? Until I've dealt with the Bratva. Until the threat is neutralized. And then. Lorenzo's expression was unreadable. Then you're free to go. Belle didn't believe him. Couldn't afford to. I want to leave, she said. Now. I'll take my chances. No. You can't keep me here against my will. I can. I am. Lorenzo moved closer, and Belle forced herself not to back away. You think I want this? You think I enjoy having a stranger in my home who I can't trust, can't predict, can't understand? You're a variable I can't control, Isabel. That makes you dangerous. Then let me go. No. He was close now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and dark. Close enough to see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes. Because despite everything, despite my better judgment, I believe you. I believe you saved me for no other reason than because it was the right thing to do. And that, his voice dropped. That makes you the most dangerous person I've ever met. Belle's breath caught. Why? Because I don't know what to do with genuine goodness. I don't know how it fits into my world. His eyes searched hers. Everyone I know operates on self-interest. Everyone wants something. But you? You wanted nothing except for me to live. Do you have any idea how terrifying that is? They stood frozen in that moment, the space between them charged with something Belle couldn't name. Then Lorenzo stepped back, breaking the spell. You'll stay here, he said, his voice cold again, controlled. Comfortable. Safe. You'll have access to most of the house, the grounds. But you will not leave without my permission. Are we clear? Crystal, Belle said, her tone sharp enough to cut. Good. He moved to his desk, pressed a button. Katia will show you around. If you need anything. I need my freedom. Anything else, Lorenzo corrected. This conversation is over. No, it's not. Belle stepped forward, anger finally burning through her fear. You don't get to do this. You don't get to kidnap me and call it protection. You don't get to dig into my past and judge me for surviving. And you especially don't get to act like you're doing me a favor by keeping me prisoner in your gilded cage. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Be careful, Isabel. Of what? You've already made it clear I'm valuable alive. So what are you going to do? Scare me? I've been scared for 8 years. Hurt me? I've been hurting for 8 years. Kill me. She laughed, the sound hollow. You'd be doing me a favor. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or recognition. Before he could respond, the door opened. Katia entered, her warm smile faltering as she sensed the tension. You asked for me, Mr. Volkov? Show Miss Morrison around. Make sure she has everything she needs. Of course. Katia gestured to Belle. This way, please. Belle held Lorenzo's gaze for one more heartbeat, trying to convey everything she felt. Fury, fear, defiance. You don't own me. You never will. Then she turned and followed Katia from the office, leaving Lorenzo standing alone in the morning light. As the door closed behind her, she heard him say softly, so softly she almost missed it. I know. Have you ever felt trapped by someone trying to protect you? Sometimes safety feels like a prison. Share your thoughts in the comment. Katia led Belle through corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly, each one more opulent than the last. The house has 42 rooms, Katia explained, her accent soft and musical. It can be overwhelming at first, but you'll learn your way. The main floor has the kitchen, dining room, living areas, Mr. Volkov's office, which you've seen. Second floor is mostly guest rooms and the library. Third floor is private quarters. Belle barely listened. She was cataloging exits, windows, potential escape routes. Old habits. They passed a room with the door ajar. Belle caught a glimpse of what looked like a gym, weights, a boxing ring, training equipment. Mr. Volkov trains every morning at 5, Katia said, noticing her interest. He says it helps him think. I'm sure it does, Belle muttered. They descended a grand staircase, all marble and wrought iron, to the main floor. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, Belle could see the grounds in daylight, manicured gardens, a fountain, what looked like a greenhouse in the distance. And everywhere, security. Men in dark suits, cameras on every corner, the high wall encircling everything like a noose. You're allowed anywhere on the main and second floors, Katia continued. The grounds as well, though I'd advise staying close to the house. The men can be protective. You mean they'll drag me back if I try to run? Katia's expression softened with sympathy. You're angry. I understand. But Mr. Volkov truly believes you're in danger. He doesn't even know me. No, Katia agreed. But he knows the people who tried to kill him. And they are not forgiving of witnesses. They entered a massive kitchen, all stainless steel and granite countertops, the kind of kitchen Belle had only seen in magazines. A pot of coffee sat brewing, filling the air with rich, dark aroma. Please sit. Katia gestured to a breakfast bar. Have you eaten? I'm not hungry. You need to eat anyway. Katia moved to the refrigerator with the efficiency of someone who'd had this conversation before. When did you last have a proper meal? Belle thought about it. Yesterday's lunch break? The day before? Time had become elastic, meaningless. I don't remember, she admitted. Then you'll eat now. Katia began pulling out ingredients, eggs, cheese, vegetables. I've been with the Volkov family for 23 years. I raised that man from a boy. I know when he's conflicted. Conflicted about what? About you. Katia cracked eggs into a bowl with practiced movements. He doesn't trust easily. His father taught him that trust is weakness. And then his brother, she paused, something painful crossing her face. His brother's death confirmed it. But you. She whisked the eggs. You've confused him. And Mr. Volkov doesn't like being confused. That's not my problem. Isn't it? Katia poured the eggs into a hot pan. The sizzle filled the kitchen. You saved his life. Whether you meant to or not, you're now part of his story. And Lorenzo Volkov protects what's his. I'm not his. No, Katia agreed. But you're not free either. Not yet. So you have a choice. Spend your time here fighting the inevitable, or, she plated the omelet, added fresh fruit, set it in front of Belle. Accept the situation and make the best of it. Belle stared at the food. It smelled incredible, Her stomach betrayed her with a loud growl. How long? She asked quietly. How long will he keep me here? As long as it takes to ensure you're safe. Days, perhaps. Maybe a week. And if I refuse to cooperate? Katya's smile was sad. Then you'll spend that time in your room instead of exploring the library, the gardens, the music room. You'll eat alone instead of having company. You'll be safe but miserable. She poured coffee into a mug, added cream. Or you could accept that for now, this is your reality. Make use of the time. Read. Rest. Recover from whatever you've been running from all these years. Belle picked up the fork, took a bite of omelette. It was perfect, fluffy, seasoned just right, with herbs she couldn't name. He told you about my past, she said. He tells me very little. But I have eyes. I see a young woman who flinches at sudden movements, who checks exits, who doesn't sleep. I see someone who's been surviving instead of living. Katya sat across from her. Whatever happened to you, whatever you're running from, you're safe here. Truly safe. Perhaps for the first time in years. Tears pricked Belle's eyes. She blinked them back furiously. Safe in a prison. Safe in a fortress, Katya corrected gently. There's a difference. After breakfast, Katya showed Belle to the library. It was stunning. 2 stories of books, a spiral staircase connecting them, comfortable reading chairs positioned near tall windows that flooded the space with natural light. The smell of old paper and leather filled the air. Mr. Volkov spends a great deal of time here, Katya said. He loves to read. Belle couldn't hide her surprise. Really? You thought he was all violence and business? He's complex, Miss Morrison. More than most people realize. Katya moved to a shelf, ran her fingers along the spines. Philosophy, poetry, history, literature. He reads in 4 languages. Belle moved to the nearest shelf, scanning titles. Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Camus, Nietzsche. First editions, by the look of them. The man who shot someone last night reads Camus, she asked incredulously. The man who shot someone trying to kill him reads Camus, Katya corrected. Context matters. Belle pulled out a worn copy of The Stranger, flipped through pages marked with what looked like handwritten notes in the margins. Lorenzo's handwriting, bold, decisive, surprisingly elegant. We are all strangers to ourselves, one note read. The question is whether we have the courage to look. She snapped the book shut, uncomfortable with this glimpse into Lorenzo's interior world. I'll leave you to explore, Katya said. If you need anything, there's an intercom on the wall. Just press the button. After she left, Belle stood alone in the massive library, feeling small and lost. She'd imagined many scenarios for how her life might end, alone in some cheap apartment, killed by whatever remained of the organization that murdered her family, maybe even by her own hand on a particularly dark night. She'd never imagined being trapped in luxury by a mafia boss who read philosophy and seemed genuinely confused by the concept of selfless action. Belle selected a book at random, The Count of Monte Cristo, and settled into a leather chair by the window. If she was going to be imprisoned, she might as well read about someone else's imprisonment and eventual revenge. She'd read perhaps 3 pages when she heard it, a piano. The music drifted through the house, haunting and beautiful. Something classical, Chopin, maybe? Belle had never been good with composers. Despite herself, she set down the book and followed the sound. Down another corridor, through a sitting room, to a closed door from which the music emanated. She hesitated, hand on the doorknob, knowing she should turn back. Instead, she opened the door. The music room was smaller than the library, but no less impressive. A grand piano dominated the space, black and gleaming in the afternoon light. And at the piano, his back to her, sat Lorenzo. His hands moved across the keys with surprising grace, coaxing emotion from the instrument that Belle felt in her chest. The piece was melancholic, beautiful, the kind of music that spoke of loss and longing. She must have made a sound, a breath, a shuffle, because his hand stilled. The music died. I didn't mean to interrupt, Belle said quickly. Lorenzo didn't turn around. But you did. I'll go. Stay. He began playing again, but something different this time. Softer, questioning. Do you know what this is? Belle moved closer despite herself. No. Debussy. Clair de Lune. His fingers danced across the keys. My mother taught me to play. Before he stopped, both the sentence and the music. Sit. It wasn't a request, but it wasn't quite a command either. Belle perched on the edge of a chair near the piano, keeping distance between them. I didn't know you played, she said. You don't know anything about me. Whose fault is that? The ghost of a smile touched his lips. He began playing again, something she recognized this time. Canon in D. My brother loved this piece, Lorenzo said quietly. He'd make me play it over and over. Said it made him feel peaceful. His hands moved through the familiar progression. I haven't played it since he died. Belle didn't know what to say. She watched his face in profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the concentration in his eyes, the way his expression softened when he played. He looked almost human. Why did you tell me that? She asked. I don't know. The music continued, filling the silence. Maybe because you're the first person in years who doesn't want anything from me. Or maybe, he paused, struck a wrong note, corrected it. Maybe because you remind me that I used to be different. Before. Before what? Before I became this. The music swelled, then softened, then resolved into silence. Lorenzo's hands stilled on the keys. He finally turned to look at her, and in his eyes, Belle saw something raw. Vulnerable. I'm sorry, he said. For keeping you here. For scaring you. For being, he gestured vaguely at himself. This. But I meant what I said. You're in danger because of me, and I won't let you die for doing the right thing. Even if that means taking away my freedom? Even then. He stood, moved to the window. I know you hate me. I understand it. But you'll be safe here. I promise you that. And your promises mean something? Belle heard the bitterness in her voice. How many people have you made promises to, Lorenzo? How many of them are still alive? His jaw tightened. More than you'd think. I'm not a monster, Isabel. I'm just a man who does monstrous things. Yes. He turned to face her. Exactly that. They stared at each other across the room, the space between them charged with too many emotions to name. I had a brother too, Belle heard herself say. Younger. He was 10 when they killed him. Killed all of them. My parents, my brother. Because I witnessed something I shouldn't have. Because I was stupid enough to think truth mattered more than survival. Lorenzo's expression shifted. That's why you saved me. Maybe. I don't know. She wrapped her arms around herself. I couldn't watch it happen again. Even to someone like you. Someone like me, Lorenzo repeated. A monster. A person, Belle corrected quietly. That's the problem. You're a person. You play piano and read Camus and loved your brother. That makes it harder to hate you. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or hope. You don't have to hate me, he said. But you don't have to trust me either. He moved closer, stopped a careful distance away. Just let me keep you safe. For now. Please. The please undid something in Belle's chest. Do I have a choice? She asked. No. Then why ask? Because I wanted to hear myself say it. Wanted to know if I still could. Belle didn't know how to respond to that. The silence stretched between them, not quite comfortable but not hostile either. Something else. Something undefined. I should go, she said finally. Katya's preparing lunch. You should eat. Is that an order or a suggestion? A request. Lorenzo's mouth curved into an almost smile. I'm trying those now. You're a bad influence. Despite everything, Belle felt her own lips twitch. Good. She turned to leave, got as far as the door before his voice stopped her. Isabel. She looked back. Thank you, he said. For the warning. I never properly said it. Thank you. Belle nodded, not trusting her voice, and left him standing alone in the music room. As she walked back through the corridors, she could hear him playing again. The same Debussy piece, but different now. Less melancholic. Almost hopeful. Lunch was awkward. Katya had set a small table on a terrace overlooking the gardens. Belle sat alone, picking at grilled salmon and roasted vegetables, when Lorenzo appeared. May I join you? He asked. Before Belle could answer, he'd already sat down across from her. You don't actually care if I say no, do you? She asked. No. But I'm practicing courtesy. He took a bite of salmon. Katya says you've been exploring. Your prison is very nice. It's not a prison. Then I can leave. Lorenzo set down his fork. We've had this conversation. And we'll keep having it until you let me go. Eat your vegetables. You're too thin. Belle stared at him. Did you just? You need to eat more. Katya's concerned. I don't need you worrying about my diet. Consider it enlightened self-interest. If you get sick, I'll feel guilty. He resumed eating as if this was perfectly normal. They sat in tense silence for several minutes. The guards are watching us, Belle observed. They're always watching. It's their job. Don't they have better things to do? Then protect me and my guest? No. Lorenzo poured wine into both their glasses despite Belle's protest. Drink. It's a 2015 Bordeaux. Cost more than your monthly rent. That's supposed to make me want it? It's supposed to make you appreciate that I'm sharing it. Belle took a sip just to be contrary. It was, she hated to admit, incredible. Rich and complex, tasting of dark fruit and something she couldn't name. It's good, she admitted grudgingly. Everything here is good. That's the point. What point? Lorenzo leaned back, studying her. That you could be comfortable here. That this doesn't have to be punishment. It's still a cage. A very nice cage. Still a cage. He smiled, genuinely smiled, and Belle was struck again by how different he looked when he wasn't being the cold Mafia boss. Younger. Almost kind. You're stubborn, he observed. You're observant. I like it. I don't care. His smile widened. Yes, you do. You care very much. About everything. That's your problem. Belle set down her wine glass with more force than necessary. My problem is that I saved a man's life and got kidnapped for it. Protected. Semantics. Important semantics. Lorenzo's expression grew serious. The Bratva doesn't forgive witnesses, Isabelle. If they know you warned me, and they will know, they'll come for you. Not quickly. Not obviously. They'll wait until you think you're safe, until you've let your guard down. And then, he made a small gesture. You'll disappear. Quietly. Permanently. A chill ran down Belle's spine. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to make you understand why I can't let you leave. Not yet. And when will it be safe? When I've dealt with them. Which means what, exactly? You'll kill them all? Start a war. If necessary. His voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. Belle pushed away from the table, stood abruptly. I can't do this. I can't sit here drinking expensive wine and making small talk with someone who talks about murder like it's a business transaction. It is a business transaction. That's all it's ever been. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. She started to walk away, but Lorenzo's voice stopped her. My brother was 19 when he died, he said quietly. Killed in a warehouse by our own uncle. A power play. I was 22. I held him while he bled out, and do you know what he said to me? Belle turned slowly. Lorenzo was staring at his wine glass, jaw tight. Don't become like them, he continued. Those were his last words. Don't become like them, Lorenzo. Stay good. And his voice cracked, just slightly. I looked at his blood on my hands and I knew I had two choices. Become soft, become vulnerable, and die like he did. Or become harder than everyone else. Colder. More ruthless. Become what I needed to be to survive. You chose survival. I chose revenge. Survival was just a side effect. He finally looked up at her. I killed my uncle. Slowly. Painfully. And I built an empire on his grave. That's who I am, Isabelle. That's what I became. So when you look at me with those disappointed eyes, understand that I know exactly what I've lost. I know exactly what I sacrificed to become this. Belle's throat tightened. Then change. It's too late. It's never too late. Spoken like someone who hasn't done the things I've done. You're right, Belle said. I haven't. I've just survived them. But you know what? At least I'm still trying to be a good person. At least I haven't given up on the idea that goodness matters. And look where it got you. Trapped in a stranger's house. Better than trapped in a stranger's soul. The words hung between them like a blade. Lorenzo stood slowly, moved toward her with predatory grace. Belle held her ground even as every instinct screamed to run. He stopped inches away, close enough that she could see the silver flecks in his gray eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. You think you understand me, he said softly. You think that music and books and one moment of vulnerability mean you've seen past the monster. But you haven't, Isabelle. You've just seen the ghost of who I used to be. And ghosts aren't real. Then why are you trying so hard to convince me? Belle tilted her chin up, refusing to be intimidated. If you're really the monster you claim to be, why do you care what I think? His hand lifted, and for a heartbeat, Belle thought he might touch her face. Instead, his fingers curled into a fist and dropped back to his side. I don't, he said. But his eyes said otherwise. They stood frozen in that moment, the space between them crackling with tension and something else. Something neither of them wanted to name. A phone buzzed. Lorenzo stepped back, pulled it from his pocket, answered with a curt, "What?" His expression darkened as he listened. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. Mobilize everyone. I want, he glanced at Belle, then walked several steps away, lowering his voice. But Belle heard enough. Words like breach, perimeter, and casualties. When Lorenzo ended the call, his entire demeanor had changed. The man who'd been sharing wine and playing piano was gone. The Mafia boss was back. You need to go inside, he said. What's happening? Nothing you need to worry about. Lorenzo. Now, Isabelle. His voice cracked like a whip. Katia will take you to your room. You'll stay there until I tell you otherwise. Fear spiked through Belle's chest. Is it them? The Bratva. His silence was answer enough. They found me, she whispered. They found the house. They don't know you're here. Not yet. He moved toward the door, already pulling out his phone again. Katia. The older woman appeared almost instantly. Take her to the safe room. Third floor, East Wing. Code is 1-9-9-2. Lock her in and don't open it for anyone but me. Understand? Katia's face went pale, but she nodded. Yes, sir. Lorenzo, Belle started. He turned, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. Not anger. Not coldness. Fear. For her. I told you I'd keep you safe, he said. I keep my promises. Then he was gone, shouting orders to men who materialized from every corner of the house. Katia gripped Belle's arm. Come. Quickly. As they raced through corridors toward the third floor, Belle could hear it, shouts outside, the screech of tires, and then gunfire. Sharp. Loud. Terrifyingly close. Oh God, Belle breathed. Move. Katia pushed her up a narrow staircase Belle hadn't seen before. Almost there. They reached a door, thick, reinforced steel. Katia punched in the code with shaking fingers. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside. Now. Belle stumbled into what looked like a small apartment. Bed, bathroom, kitchenette, monitors showing security camera feeds from around the property. On the monitors, Belle could see figures in black moving through the gardens. Could see Lorenzo's men taking up defensive positions. Could see. Don't look, Katia said, but too late. Belle watched a man, one of Lorenzo's guards, fall. Blood bloomed across his chest. He's going to die, Belle whispered. They're going to kill him. Mr. Volkov is smart. Strategic. He'll. More gunfire. Closer now. On the monitor, Belle saw Lorenzo himself emerge from the house, gun drawn, moving with lethal efficiency. Saw him drop 2 attackers before diving behind a stone fountain. He's outnumbered, Belle said. He's survived worse. The battle played out on the screens like a nightmare. Belle couldn't look away. Couldn't stop watching Lorenzo risk his life against at least a dozen armed men. All because she'd saved him. All because she'd cared. This is my fault, she thought. If he dies, it's because of me. On the monitor, Lorenzo broke from cover, fired 3 shots in rapid succession, took down another attacker. But he was bleeding. Belle could see dark wetness spreading across his shoulder. He's hit, she said. Katia's hand tightened on her shoulder. He'll be fine. You don't know that. I know that man has survived 3 assassination attempts, a car bomb, and 2 different poisonings. He's. The door to the safe room rattled. Both women froze. It's locked, Katia whispered. No one can get in. No one except. A voice on the other side. Accented. Cold. We know you're in there, little bartender. We know Volkov is keeping you. You have 10 seconds to open this door, or we blow it open and everyone inside dies. Belle's blood turned to ice. Katia was already pulling out her phone, dialing frantically. Don't bother, the voice continued. Volkov is bleeding out in his garden. His men are dead or dying. You have no help coming. Now, a pause. Open the door, or I start counting down. Belle looked at the monitors. Saw Lorenzo slumped behind the fountain, trying to reload with one injured arm. Saw the attackers closing in. Saw him losing. 10. Don't, Katia hissed. 9. Belle's hand moved toward the door handle. 8. Miss Morrison, no. 7. On the monitor, one of the attackers raised his weapon, aimed at Lorenzo's unprotected back. 6. Belle thought of her family. Of her brother's gap-toothed smile. Of the promise she'd made over their graves. Never again. Never stand by and watch someone die. 5. She'd broken that promise once by saving Lorenzo. 4. She wouldn't break it again by letting him die. 3. I'm sorry, Belle whispered to Katia. 2. She opened the door. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is sacrifice ourselves for someone else. Would you open that door? Let me know what you'd choose. The man on the other side of the door was exactly what Belle expected. Cold eyes, expensive suit stained with blood that probably wasn't his, and a gun pointed directly at her chest. Smart girl, he said in that thick Eastern European accent. Now come with. Katia moved faster than Belle would have thought possible for a woman her age. She threw something, a heavy book from the side table, directly at the man's face. He stumbled back, cursing in Russian. Run. Katia shoved Belle toward the bathroom. Window. Fire escape. But there were more of them. 2 more men pushed into the safe room, guns drawn. Nobody moves, the first man said, blood trickling from his nose where the book had struck. He wiped it away, smiled coldly. Stupid old woman. You'll pay for. Touch her and Lorenzo will skin you alive, Belle said, her voice steadier than she felt. The man's attention shifted back to her. Lorenzo's dead. Or he will be soon. You though, you're coming with us. Our employer wants to meet the woman brave enough, or stupid enough, to save Lorenzo Volkov's life. He grabbed Belle's arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. That's when the gunfire stopped. The sudden silence was more terrifying than the noise had been. The man's radio crackled. A voice spoke in rapid Russian. Belle didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone: panic. The man's expression shifted from confident to concerned. Say again. More Russian. Urgent. Afraid. Then from downstairs, a sound that made Belle's blood freeze. A roar of pure rage, followed by gunshots, close, controlled, methodical. Volkov, one of the other men whispered. The lead man shook his head. Impossible. He was hit, I saw. The door to the safe room exploded inward. Lorenzo stood in the doorway like something out of a nightmare. His white shirt was drenched in blood, his shoulder bleeding freely from a bullet wound, but his gun hand was steady. His eyes were wild, feral, locked onto the man holding Belle. Let her go. His voice was quiet. Deadly. The man tightened his grip on Belle, yanked her in front of him as a shield. Cold metal pressed against her temple, his gun, cocked and ready. Don't move, Volkov, or I paint the walls with her brain. Lorenzo's eyes flicked to Belle. She saw something in them, fear yes, but also calculation. He was measuring angles, distances, possibilities. You won't shoot her, Lorenzo said. Your employer wants her alive. Otherwise, you'd have killed her already. Maybe I don't care what my employer wants. Yes, you do. Because Alexei Petrov doesn't forgive failure, and showing up without the girl would be failure. The man's grip tightened fractionally. How do you know who sent you? Please. Lorenzo's smile was sharp as a blade. Petrov's been trying to kill me for 6 months. This is just his latest attempt. Sloppy, by the way. Half your men are dead, the other half are running, and you, his gun shifted slightly. You made the mistake of touching something that's mine. She's not yours. No, Lorenzo agreed. But I promised to keep her safe. And I always keep my promises. Time fractured. Lorenzo fired. The bullet struck the man's shoulder, the one holding Belle, and his grip spasmed open. Belle dropped, hitting the floor hard as Lorenzo fired again. The man fell backward, blood blooming across his chest. The other 2 men raised their weapons, but Lorenzo was already moving. 2 shots, precise and brutal. Both men dropped. Silence crashed down like a weight. Belle looked up from the floor. Lorenzo stood over the bodies, chest heaving, blood dripping from his shoulder to pool on the expensive carpet. Their eyes met. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, strained. Belle shook her head, unable to speak. Katia was already moving, checking the bodies, securing the weapons with practiced efficiency that revealed this wasn't her first crisis. Lorenzo swayed slightly. His face had gone pale beneath the blood and grime. You're bleeding, Belle said, finding her voice. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're. His legs buckled. Belle lunged forward, catching him before he hit the floor, or trying to. He was too heavy, too tall. They both went down in a tangle of limbs. Katia! Belle shouted. The older woman was already on her phone. Dr. Kozlov, we need you immediately. Mr. Volkov's been shot. Yes, again. 3rd floor safe room. Hurry. Belle pressed her hands against Lorenzo's shoulder, trying to staunch the bleeding. Blood, hot and slick, poured between her fingers. Too much blood. Not again. Please, not again. Stay with me, she said urgently. Lorenzo, look at me. Stay awake. His eyes found hers. Gray and hazy with pain. You opened the door. You were dying. Told you, stay safe. You were dying, Belle repeated, pressing harder on the wound. He grimaced but didn't cry out. I couldn't just hide while they killed you. Stupid, he muttered. Brave and stupid. Says the man who took on 12 armed men with 1 working arm. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. Had to. You were in danger. Because of you. Because of me, he agreed. His hand lifted, trembling, to touch her face. His fingers left streaks of blood on her cheek. Sorry. For all of it. Don't apologize. Just don't die. Not planning to. But his eyes were closing, his breathing becoming shallow. No, Lorenzo, stay awake. Belle patted his face, none too gently. Look at me. Tell me about your brother. Tell me about Alexei. His eyes fluttered open. How do you? The photograph. In your office. I saw it earlier. 2 boys. You and him. Observant, he murmured. Tell me about him. Keep talking. The doctor's coming, but you need to stay conscious. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. He was better than me. Kinder. Saw good in people. His voice was fading. Like you. I'm not kind. I'm a coward who's been running for 8 years. Running, from what? Belle's throat closed. She'd never told anyone. Never spoke the words aloud. But he was bleeding out in her arms, and she owed him truth. My family, she whispered. We lived in a small town outside the city. Quiet. Safe. Or so we thought. I was 20, home from college for the summer. My brother was 10. We were supposed to go to the movies that night, but I decided to walk to the corner store first. Get snacks. Her hands pressed harder against his wound. His blood soaked her sleeves. I saw them in the alley behind the store. 3 men. They just shot someone, I could see the body. And her voice broke. I ran. I went straight to the police. Testified. Put 2 of them in prison. Brave, Lorenzo murmured. Stupid, Belle corrected. Because the 3rd man got away. And a week later, he came to my house. My family was eating dinner. I was upstairs. I heard the shots and tears streamed down her face. I hid. Like a coward, I hid in my closet while they murdered my parents and my baby brother. I could hear him crying for me. Belle, help me, he kept saying. And I stayed hidden. You survived. They died because of me. Because I couldn't mind my own business. Because I thought truth and justice mattered more than, she choked on a sob. The 3rd man left a message. Written in my mother's blood. This is what happens to witnesses. So I ran. Changed my name. Became invisible. Spent 8 years making sure I never got involved in anything ever again. Never cared about anyone. Never let anyone care about me. Lorenzo's eyes had sharpened despite the blood loss. Until me. Until you. Belle wiped tears away with her forearm, smearing more blood. I saw that poison going into your drink and every instinct screamed to look away. To let it happen. But her voice dropped to a whisper. I couldn't watch another person die knowing I could stop it. I couldn't be that coward again. Not a coward, Lorenzo said firmly. Never a coward. I let my family die. You survived. That took more courage than dying with them. The words hit Belle like a physical blow. In 8 years, no one had said anything like that. Everyone, the police, the witness protection handlers, the therapist they'd assigned her, had treated her like a victim. Fragile. Broken. No one had called her survival an act of courage. The man who killed them, Lorenzo said, his voice growing stronger somehow despite the blood loss. What was his name? Viktor Kozlov. Lorenzo's entire body went rigid. What? Viktor Kozlov. Why, do you? Dr. Kozlov is coming, Katya interrupted, kneeling beside them with towels to help stop the bleeding. He'll be here any moment. Not that Kozlov, Lorenzo said, his eyes locked on Belle's. Different man. My doctor is Mikhail Kozlov. But Viktor Kozlov, he stopped, something dark crossing his face. You know him, Belle said. It wasn't a question. Knew him. He worked for my uncle. 15 years ago. He was, Lorenzo grimaced, whether from pain or the memory, Belle couldn't tell. He was the one who killed my brother. Belle's world tilted. What? Viktor Kozlov. He was my uncle's enforcer. When my uncle decided to make his move, to take control of the family, he sent Viktor to kill Alexei. To send me a message. Lorenzo's hand found hers, gripped it with surprising strength. I hunted him for years. Thought I'd killed him in Moscow 6 years ago. Shot him 3 times and watched him fall into the river. He survived, Belle whispered. He came back to the States. Changed his identity. Started working as a freelance killer. And killed your family. Lorenzo's eyes blazed with something fierce and protective. The man who destroyed my life destroyed yours. We're connected, Belle finished. By the same monster. Footsteps thundered on the stairs. Viktor, Lorenzo's lieutenant, not the killer, burst into the room, followed by a gray-haired man carrying a medical bag. Boss. Viktor dropped to his knees beside them. Jesus, you're... I'm fine. The perimeter. Secure. We got all of them. 10 dead, 3 captured alive for questioning. Good. Make sure they talk. Lorenzo tried to sit up, failed. Don't move, the doctor, Mikhail Kozlov said firmly, already cutting away Lorenzo's shirt to expose the wound. The bullet's still in there. I need to operate. Now. Do it here. You need a hospital. Here, Lorenzo repeated. I don't leave her unprotected. Dr. Kozlov looked at Belle, then at the bodies on the floor, then back at Lorenzo. You're insane. Frequently. Can you do it or not? I can do it. But you'll need to be unconscious and... no anesthesia. Lorenzo, that's... I need to stay alert. In case. I'll watch over her, Katya said firmly. You have my word. She won't leave my sight. Lorenzo's eyes found Belle's again. You'll stay. Where would I go? Good point. He winced as the doctor began examining the wound. Isabel. I need you to listen to me. Viktor Kozlov, the one who killed your family and my brother, he's alive. And if Petrov hired these men, there's a connection. Which means... He might come for me, Belle finished. He will come for you. Your unfinished business. A witness who got away. Lorenzo's grip on her hand tightened. But he won't get to you. I swear it. On my brother's grave, I swear I'll keep you safe. You can't promise that. I just did. Dr. Kozlov pulled out surgical instruments. Everyone out except Katya. I need space to work. And Lorenzo, I'm giving you something for the pain whether you like it or not. You'll pass out anyway once I start digging for that bullet. Belle started to stand, but Lorenzo's hand held hers. Wait, he said. Your family. What were their names? The question surprised her. Why? Because they deserve to be remembered. Because you shouldn't carry them alone anymore. Tears blurred Belle's vision. Margaret and Thomas Morrison. My parents. And my brother, her voice cracked. Jamie. He wanted to be an astronaut. Jamie Morrison, Lorenzo repeated softly. I'll remember him. I promise. Then he let her hand go. Katya ushered Belle toward the door, but she looked back once. Lorenzo was watching her, gray eyes intense even as the doctor began working on his shoulder. Thank you, he mouthed. Belle didn't know if he was thanking her for saving him twice in one day, or for trusting him with her deepest pain, or for something else entirely. She nodded and let Katya lead her away. They ended up in a sitting room down the hall. Katya made tea, strong and sweet, and wrapped a blanket around Belle's shoulders. You're in shock, Katya said gently. Drink. Belle's hands shook as she lifted the cup. The tea tasted like nothing. How long? She asked. How long will the surgery take? An hour. Maybe 2. Dr. Kozlov is very good. Has this happened before? 3 times in the years I've known him. Mr. Volkov has a dangerous life. Belle laughed, a sharp, slightly hysterical sound. That's an understatement. They sat in silence for a while. Belle could hear activity elsewhere in the house, men shouting orders, the sound of cleanup, sirens in the distance. They'll cover it up, she said. Won't they? The attack. The bodies. Yes. Mr. Volkov has arrangements with the local authorities. Of course he does. More silence. What you did, Katya said finally. Opening that door. You saved his life again. I endangered it. If I hadn't been here, they wouldn't have attacked. If you hadn't been here, he'd be dead from the poison. You can't blame yourself for the consequences of doing good, Miss Morrison. Can't I? Belle set down her teacup with shaking hands. Every time I try to do the right thing, people die. My family died because I testified. Lorenzo almost died because I saved him. When do I learn that caring about people is fatal? Never, I hope. Katya's voice was fierce. Because the moment you stop caring is the moment you become like the men who killed your family. Like the men who attack us now. Don't let them take your humanity, child. It's the only thing they can never touch unless you give it to them. Belle looked at the older woman, at the strength in her lined face, the certainty in her eyes. How do you do it? Belle asked. How do you work for him? How do you reconcile the man who plays piano and reads poetry with the man who kills people? Katya was quiet for a long moment. I don't reconcile them. I accept that he is both. That we all are, in our own ways. Capable of great gentleness and great violence. The question is which side we feed. Which side we choose to be. And which side is Lorenzo choosing? I think, Katya smiled softly. I think you're helping him remember there's a choice at all. He's been the monster for so long, he forgot he could be anything else. Until you showed him that goodness still exists. That someone could save him without wanting anything in return. I want something, Belle admitted quietly. What? To go back to my life. To be invisible again. To not feel, she stopped, not wanting to name what she was feeling. To not feel what? Katya pressed gently. Belle closed her eyes. Connected. I don't want to care about him. I don't want to worry if he lives or dies. I don't want to, her throat closed. You don't want to fall for him, Katya finished. I'm not falling for him. That's insane. He kidnapped me. He protected you. He's a criminal. He's a man. He kills people. And you saved him anyway. Katya reached over, took Belle's hand. You can tell yourself it was just instinct, just about doing the right thing. But you opened that door upstairs knowing they might kill you. You risked your life for his. That's not just morality, child. That's... Don't say it. Care. Perhaps even. Don't. The beginning of something deeper. Belle pulled her hand away, stood abruptly. I need air. You can't leave the... I'm not leaving. I need to move. Please. Katya studied her for a long moment, then nodded. The gardens are safe. Stay where the guards can see you. Belle practically ran from the room. She found her way downstairs and out to the terrace where she and Lorenzo had shared lunch, Was that really just hours ago? It felt like a lifetime. The gardens were beautiful in the late afternoon light, but Belle could see the damage from the attack: bullet holes in the stone fountain, blood on the pristine grass, scorch marks where something had exploded. She wrapped the blanket tighter around herself and walked to the fountain, the same one where Lorenzo had taken cover, where he'd been shot protecting her. This is all my fault. No. That wasn't right. The attack was the Bratva's fault. The danger was Viktor Kozlov's fault, the man who'd killed both their families. We're connected by the same monster. Lorenzo's words echoed in her mind. It seemed impossible, like fate had twisted their lives together long before that note slid under a coaster in a bar. Miss Morrison. She turned. Victor, the lieutenant, not the killer, stood a respectful distance away. I don't mean to disturb you, he said, but the boss wanted me to give you an update. He's out of surgery. The doctor removed the bullet. He's resting now. Relief flooded through Belle so powerfully her knees almost buckled. He's okay. He's Lorenzo Volkov. He's always okay. Victor's expression softened slightly. That was brave. What you did. Opening the door. It was stupid. Brave and stupid aren't mutually exclusive. He moved closer, his scarred face thoughtful. I've worked for Lorenzo for 12 years. I've seen him with many women. But I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you when he thought you were in danger. Like the world would end if something happened to you. Belle's heart stuttered. You're imagining things. Maybe. Or maybe you're the first person in 15 years who's gotten past his walls. The first person he's let himself care about since Alexei died. Victor turned to leave, then paused. Whatever you decide, to stay, to go, to hate him or not, know this: you've changed him. In the span of 24 hours, you've reminded him what it's like to feel something other than anger and control. That's a gift, Miss Morrison. Whether you meant to give it or not. He walked away, leaving Belle alone with her thoughts and the setting sun. She sat on the edge of the fountain, trailing her fingers in the water, watching blood dissolve and swirl away. You've changed him. But had he changed her? The woman who'd slipped that note to a stranger wasn't the same woman who'd hidden in a closet while her family died. Wasn't the same woman who'd spent 8 years being invisible. That woman had been too afraid to care. This woman, the one who'd opened a door knowing it might mean death, who'd held a bleeding mafia boss and begged him to stay alive, this woman cared too much. Which one am I supposed to be? Belle. She turned. Lorenzo stood in the doorway to the house, leaning heavily on the doorframe. His shoulder was bandaged, his face pale but determined. He should have been unconscious. Should have been resting. Instead, he'd come looking for her. You should be in bed, she said. Probably. He moved slowly toward her, each step clearly costing him. But I needed to see you. To make sure you were really okay. You were shot. I'm fine. You had a gun to your head. And you saved me. They stared at each other across the space between them. I need to tell you something, Lorenzo said. About Viktor Kozlov. The one who killed our families. Our families, Belle repeated softly. The words linked them in ways she wasn't ready to examine. I made some calls while the doctor was stitching me up. Viktor Kozlov is alive. He's been working freelance, hits, intimidation, anything that pays. And 3 months ago, he was hired by Alexei Petrov. Belle's stomach dropped. The man who sent the attack today. Yes. Which means Victor might be involved in all of this. Might have known about the attempt on my life. Might, Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Might know about you. That you're here. Then I'm putting you in more danger. No. We're protecting each other. He reached the fountain, sat heavily beside her. His shoulder had to be killing him, but he didn't show it. I'm going after Petrov. And when I find him, I'll find Victor. And I'll finish what I should have finished 6 years ago. And then you'll be free. Of him. Of the past. Of the fear. He turned to look at her, and in his eyes, Belle saw something raw and honest. Of me. If that's what you want. Is that what you want? What I want, he stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. What I want doesn't matter. What matters is keeping you safe. Giving you back your life. The one that was stolen from you 8 years ago. That life is gone, Lorenzo. I'm not that girl anymore. Then who are you? Belle thought about it, really thought about it. Who was she? Not the daughter who'd lost her family. Not the witness in hiding. Not the invisible bartender. I don't know, she admitted. But for the first time in 8 years, I think I want to find out. Lorenzo's hand covered hers on the fountain's edge. Then let me help. Let me give you that chance. Let me keep my promise. Why do you care so much? Because, he stopped, his thumb tracing circles on her hand. Because you saved me. Not just from poison. From becoming so cold, so removed from my own humanity, that I forgot what it felt like to care about someone other than myself. You reminded me I used to be different. That I could be different. You're still a killer. Yes. Still a criminal. Yes. Still dangerous. Always. His eyes held hers. But maybe I could be those things and still be something else too. Something better. If I had a reason to try. The implication hung between them, fragile and terrifying. I can't be your redemption, Belle whispered. That's too much pressure. I'm not asking you to be. I'm just asking, he squeezed her hand gently. Asking if you'll let me try. To be better. To keep you safe. To give you the freedom you deserve. And if I say yes? What happens then? Then we hunt the monsters together. We end Viktor Kozlov and Alexei Petrov. We make sure they can never hurt anyone again. And then, his voice dropped. Then you decide. Whether to stay or go. Whether to let me into your life or walk away. Your choice. Your freedom. Belle looked at their joined hands. His scarred and blood-stained, hers trembling but steady. Two broken people, connected by the same tragedy, given a second chance by one impulsive act of courage. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. I'll let you try. She met his eyes. But Lorenzo, I need you to understand something. I'm not falling for you. This isn't some Stockholm Syndrome romance where the captive falls for her captor. I'm terrified of you and what you represent. I'm angry you've trapped me here. And I don't know if I can ever reconcile the man who plays Debussy with the man who kills without hesitation. I understand. But, she took a breath. I also can't deny that I feel safer with you than I've felt in 8 years. That when you were bleeding, I was more terrified than I've been since the night my family died. That somehow, impossibly, I care whether you live or die. And I don't know what to do with that. Lorenzo lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was so tender, so unexpected, that Belle's breath caught. We'll figure it out, he said. Together. I promise. And despite everything, despite the violence and fear and impossibility of it all, Belle believed him. They sat together as the sun set, two souls bound by tragedy and saved by courage, neither knowing yet what the future held but both willing finally to find out. When the past that broke you connects you to someone else's pain, can healing begin? Do you believe two broken people can save each other? The next 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Lorenzo was supposed to be resting, doctor's orders, enforced by Katya with a firmness that would have been amusing if Belle wasn't so worried about him. But resting for Lorenzo Volkov apparently meant working from his study, taking calls at all hours, and orchestrating a war against the Bratva from behind a desk. Belle found herself drawn to that study more often than she'd like to admit. The first time was an accident. She'd been exploring the second-floor library, had gotten lost in a first edition of Jane Eyre, when she heard raised voices from down the hall. Lorenzo's voice, strained with pain and frustration. I don't care what it costs. Find Petrov. I want every asset we have on this. Victor's calmer response. Boss, you need to rest. You're going to tear your stitches. Then I'll get more stitches. Belle found herself walking toward the study before she'd consciously decided to move. The door was ajar. Through the gap, she could see Lorenzo at his desk, his face pale, his bandaged shoulder visible beneath a black t-shirt. He looked exhausted. She knocked softly. Both men looked up. Lorenzo's expression shifted when he saw her, something in his eyes softened. Isabel. You should be resting, she said, echoing Victor's words. So I've been told. Repeatedly. But he gestured to the chair across from his desk. Come in. Unless you'd rather not. Belle hesitated, then stepped inside. Victor took it as his cue to leave, nodding to her on his way out. You look terrible, Belle said bluntly once they were alone. Lorenzo's mouth curved into a half-smile. You know how to flatter a man. I'm serious. When did you last sleep? Yesterday, I think. He leaned back in his chair, winced at the movement. Time's been fluid. Belle moved around the desk before she could stop herself. Let me see your shoulder. It's fine. Lorenzo. He met her eyes, and something passed between them. A challenge, maybe. Or a test. He pulled off his shirt, carefully, hissing when the fabric caught on his bandages. Belle's breath caught. The bandage was clean, but she could see the edges of bruising spreading out from beneath it. Dark purple and yellow, angry and painful looking. When did Dr. Kozlov last check this? She asked. This morning. And he said the same thing everyone's been saying. Rest. Take it easy. Don't push myself. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. But I can't rest. Not while Petrov is out there. Not while Viktor Kozlov is breathing. Not while you're... He stopped himself. Not while I'm what? Belle prompted. In danger, he finished quietly. Every moment we waste is a moment they could be planning another attack. I can't, his hand clenched into a fist on the desk. I can't lose anyone else. Not again. Belle understood then. This wasn't just about revenge or business. This was about Alexei. About all the people Lorenzo had failed to save. About not wanting to add her name to that list. You're not going to lose me, she said softly. You can't promise that. Neither can you. But you keep promising anyway. Belle pulled up a chair, sat close enough to see the exhaustion in his eyes. When did you last eat? Katia brought something. I don't remember when. That's not an answer. She stood, moved to the door. I'll be right back. Isabel, you don't have to. I know. I want to. She found Katia in the kitchen, of course, and together they prepared a tray, soup, bread, fruit, and the tea Lorenzo apparently liked but never took time to make for himself. When Belle returned to the study, Lorenzo was staring at his computer screen, but his eyes weren't focused. He was somewhere else, somewhere dark and painful. Eat, she said, setting the tray on his desk. He blinked, came back to himself. You didn't have to do this. I know. Eat anyway. To her surprise, he did. They sat in comfortable silence while he ate, Belle watching to make sure he actually finished the soup. You're hovering, he observed. You're avoiding sleep. Touché. He set down the empty bowl. Thank you. For this. For caring when you have every reason not to. Maybe I'm just protecting my investment, Belle said lightly. You're the only thing standing between me and the bratva. Can't have you dying on me. But they both knew it was more than that. Tell me about the investigation, Belle said. What have you found? Lorenzo hesitated, then seemed to decide she deserved to know. He pulled up files on his computer, turned the screen toward her. Alexei Petrov runs the largest bratva operation on the East Coast. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking, the works. He's been trying to move into my territory for the last year, but I've blocked him at every turn. The poisoning attempt was his way of removing the obstacle. And Viktor Kozlov works for him? As a freelance contractor. Viktor's good at what he does, killing people quietly, efficiently. Petrov's used him for at least a dozen hits in the last 2 years. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Including one 3 months ago that I now realize was a test run. Petrov had Viktor poison a rival's drink at a restaurant. When it worked, he decided to try the same method on me. Belle's stomach churned. Do you know where they are? Petrov has a compound outside the city. Heavily fortified. I've had eyes on it for months, but he rarely shows himself there. As for Viktor, Lorenzo pulled up another file, and Belle's breath caught. It was a photograph. A man in his 50s, gray-haired, unremarkable except for his eyes. Cold. Empty. The eyes of someone who'd killed so many times it no longer registered as anything but business. That's him, she whispered. That's the man who killed my family. Lorenzo's hand found hers. I know. I'm sorry you have to see his face again. Don't be. I see it every time I close my eyes anyway. Belle forced herself to study the photograph. Where is he? Unknown. He doesn't stay anywhere long. Lives off the grid, communicates through encrypted channels. But, Lorenzo squeezed her hand. I'm close. I have people tracking him. And when we find him, I'll make sure he can never hurt anyone again. I promise you that. Don't make promises you can't keep. I've kept every promise I've made to you so far, haven't I? Belle thought about it. He'd promised to keep her safe, and despite the attack, she was alive because of his protection. He'd promised to find answers, and he had, connecting Viktor to Petrov to the attempt on his life. He'd promised she'd eventually be free, and she believed he'd keep that promise too, once the threat was eliminated. Yes, she admitted. You have. They sat in silence for a moment, hands still linked across the desk. You should rest, Belle said finally. Real rest. Sleep. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see, he stopped. What? You. With a gun to your head. Opening that door knowing they might kill you. His eyes found hers, and Belle saw raw fear there. I keep replaying it, wondering what would have happened if I'd been 30 seconds slower. If my shot hadn't been perfect. If I'd lost you because of my enemies, my world, my... But you didn't, Belle interrupted. I'm here. I'm safe. Because of you. This time. What about next time? Then we'll deal with next time when it comes. She stood, tugged gently on his hand. But right now, you need to sleep. Doctor's orders. I don't take orders. Make an exception. For me. The words surprised them both. Lorenzo studied her face for a long moment. Then slowly he stood. For you, he agreed quietly. Belle led him from the study, still holding his hand she realized, though neither of them mentioned it, up the stairs to the 3rd floor. His bedroom was exactly what she expected, masculine, elegant, minimal. A king-sized bed dominated the space, flanked by tall windows overlooking the grounds. The walls were a deep gray, the furniture dark wood. But what caught Belle's attention were the bookshelves lining one wall, packed with worn paperbacks and hardcovers. And on the nightstand, the photograph she'd seen in his study, the one of him and Alexei. This is where you actually live, she said softly. Not in that study or the public rooms. Here. Yes. Lorenzo moved to the bed, sat heavily. Here I don't have to be Lorenzo Volkov, head of the organization. I can just be, he stopped. Be what? I don't know anymore. I've been the monster for so long, I've forgotten what else I might be. Belle moved to sit beside him on the bed, carefully, leaving space between them. You're a man who loves his brother enough to keep his photograph by your bed, she said. A man who plays piano and reads Camus. A man who keeps his promises. That's not nothing, Lorenzo. He looked at her, really looked at her, with an intensity that made her breath catch. How do you do that? He asked. Do what? See past all the blood and violence to something worth saving. I don't know. Maybe because someone has to. Maybe because you saved me first, in a way. Gave me a purpose again. Something to care about besides my own fear. Lorenzo's hand lifted, hesitated, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek. You're extraordinary, he said quietly. You know that. I'm really not. I'm just brave, kind, honest. Everything I'm not. You're brave too. In different ways. I'm a killer, Isabel. I know. She didn't look away. But you're also more than that. You're allowed to be both. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and Belle's heart started racing. They were too close. This was too intimate. She should pull away, establish boundaries, remember that he was still technically her captor even if it didn't feel like that anymore. But she didn't move. Neither did he. I should let you rest, Belle said, her voice barely a whisper. You should. But neither of them moved. The air between them felt electric, charged with possibility and danger, and something neither of them wanted to name. Lorenzo's eyes dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. A question. Belle's heart hammered. She knew if she leaned forward even an inch, he'd kiss her. And she knew if he kissed her, everything would change. Do I want it to change? Belle, he said softly. Just her name. But it held everything, want and fear and hope and hesitation. She stood abruptly, breaking the spell. Sleep, she said, her voice shakier than she'd like. I'll check on you in a few hours. Disappointment flickered across his face, but he nodded. Thank you. For everything. Belle fled before she could do something foolish like stay. That night, Belle couldn't sleep. She paced her room, her mind replaying that moment in Lorenzo's bedroom. The way he'd looked at her. The way she'd wanted to close the distance between them. This is insane. You barely know him. He kidnapped you. He's a criminal. But he was also the first person in 8 years who'd made her feel seen. Protected. Valued for something other than her ability to be invisible. Around midnight, unable to bear her own thoughts anymore, Belle wrapped herself in a robe and ventured downstairs. The house was quiet, most of it dark. Guards patrolled outside. She could see their shadows through the windows, but inside, she seemed to be alone. She found her way to the kitchen, thinking tea might help settle her thoughts. She was waiting for the kettle to boil when she heard it. Piano music. Soft, melancholic, achingly beautiful. He can't sleep either. Belle followed the sound to the music room. The door was open, and through it, she could see Lorenzo at the piano, playing in the darkness. The only light came from the moon through the windows, painting him in silver. He was shirtless, his bandaged shoulders stark white against his skin, and his eyes were closed as his fingers moved across the keys. Belle recognized the piece now. Claire de Lune. The one he'd played before. She watched from the doorway, not wanting to interrupt. There was something sacred about this moment. Lorenzo alone with his music, his pain, his memories. But then his eyes opened, and he saw her. He didn't stop playing. Just watched her as the music continued, each note a question or confession. Belle stepped into the room. Couldn't sleep? She asked softly. No. You. No. The nightmares. She nodded. He understood. Of course he understood. He probably had his own. Sit with me, he said. Belle moved to the piano bench, sat beside him. Their shoulders touched. She could feel the heat of his skin through her thin robe. He continued playing, and Belle closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. My mother played this for me when I couldn't sleep, Lorenzo said quietly, his hands never stopping. She said music could calm even the darkest thoughts. I didn't believe her then. But now, he paused, struck a particularly beautiful chord. Now I understand. It's beautiful. She was beautiful. Kind. Everything my father wasn't. His voice held old pain. Cancer took her when I was 17. That's when everything started falling apart. When my father became harder, meaner. When Alexei started talking about leaving the family business. He stopped playing. When I realized I had to be strong enough for both of us. Belle opened her eyes, looked at him. In the moonlight, he looked younger. Vulnerable. You don't have to be strong all the time, she said. Don't I? If I'm weak, people die. That's not true. Isn't it? Alexei died because I wasn't ruthless enough to see the betrayal coming. My mother died because I couldn't save her. He stopped himself. You're what? Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Nothing. It doesn't matter. It does to you. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, there was a woman. Years ago. Before I became this. Her name was Elena. He paused, searching for words. She was light in the darkness. Kind. Gentle. Everything good I wasn't. We were going to leave together. Start over somewhere far from all of this. Belle's chest tightened. What happened? My uncle found out. Used her to get to me. Sent her back to me in pieces to teach me a lesson about weakness. About caring for anyone. His voice was hollow. That's when I killed him. That's when I became the monster. Oh, Lorenzo. Belle's hand found his on the keys. After Elena, I swore I'd never care about anyone again. Never let anyone close enough to be used against me. And for 15 years, I kept that promise. He turned to look at her. Until you. I'm not her. I'm not some fragile thing that needs protecting. No. You're stronger than she was. Stronger than I am, in some ways. His hand turned, lacing his fingers with hers. But that doesn't mean I don't worry. Doesn't mean I don't, he stopped. Don't what? Care, he finished quietly. I care about you, Isabel. More than I should. More than is smart. More than I've cared about anyone since. Don't, Belle interrupted. Don't say something you can't take back. What if I don't want to take it back? They sat frozen, hands linked, the confession hanging between them like a live wire. This is a bad idea, Belle whispered. We're a bad idea. I know. You're still dangerous. Still a killer. Still everything I should run from. I know. And I'm still broken. Still running from my past. Still terrified of caring about anyone because everyone I've ever loved has died. I know. Lorenzo lifted their joined hands, pressed them against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat, rapid, intense. But I'm tired of being alone, Belle. I'm tired of pretending I don't feel anything. And you, his eyes searched hers. You make me want to be better. To try. To believe that maybe I'm not completely beyond redemption. I can't fix you. I don't want you to fix me. I just want, he stopped, seemed to struggle with words. I just want to not be alone anymore. To share this burden with someone who understands. To have one person in my life who sees all of me, the violence and the music, the monster and the man, and doesn't run. Tears pricked Belle's eyes. I see you. I know. That's what terrifies me. His free hand cupped her face. You see me, and you haven't run. You saved me twice. You sat with me. You cared when I was hurt. You're the first person in 15 years to look at me like I'm human. You are human. Am I? Sometimes I'm not sure anymore. Belle turned on the bench to face him fully. You're human, Lorenzo. Flawed and damaged and capable of terrible things, yes. But also capable of beauty. Of kindness. Of keeping promises and protecting people and playing music that makes my heart ache. His thumb stroked her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. I don't deserve you, he said. Good thing I'm not yours to deserve. Aren't you? You're in my house, under my protection, he stopped. In your what? Thoughts. Constantly. You're in my thoughts constantly, Belle. I can't stop thinking about you. Worrying about you. Wanting, he stopped again. Wanting what? Belle's heart was racing now, her whole body aware of how close they were. Instead of answering, Lorenzo leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away to stop this, and pressed his forehead against hers. They breathed the same air, close enough to kiss but not quite touching. Tell me to stop, he whispered. Tell me this is a mistake. Tell me you don't feel this too. But Belle couldn't. Because she did feel it. This impossible, terrifying, electric pull between them. I can't, she admitted. Can't what? Can't tell you to stop. Can't pretend I don't feel this. Can't. He kissed her. Soft. Tentative. Asking permission with every gentle press of his lips against hers. Belle's breath caught, her mind screaming that this was wrong, dangerous, insane. But her body leaned in, her hands finding his shoulders, her lips opening under his. The kiss deepened. What started gentle turned desperate, weeks of tension and fear and connection pouring into one moment. Lorenzo's hand slid into her hair, tilted her head for better access. His other hand found her waist, pulled her closer. He gasped in pain, pulled back. His shoulder. She'd forgotten about his injury. I'm sorry, Belle said, breathless. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. Lorenzo's eyes were dark with want and pain. Never apologize for that. They sat inches apart, both breathing hard. This is crazy, Belle said. Yes. We barely know each other. I know. This can't go anywhere. We're too different. Too damaged. Too. I know, Lorenzo said again. Then he smiled, a real smile, warm and honest. But I don't care. Do you? Belle thought about it. About all the reasons this was a terrible idea. About how she should be running, not kissing him. About how this would only end in pain. But she was so tired of running. So tired of being alone with her fear. No, she admitted. I don't care either. Lorenzo pulled her close again, carefully, mindful of his injury, and kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her nose, everywhere except her lips. We'll figure this out, he murmured against her skin. Whatever this is. We'll figure it out together. Together, Belle repeated. The word felt foreign. Frightening. Wonderful. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped around each other in the moonlight, the piano silent but the music still echoing in the spaces between heartbeats. Eventually, Belle's head found its way to Lorenzo's good shoulder, and he held her there, one hand stroking her hair while the other rested on her hip. Tell me something true, he said softly. Something you've never told anyone. Belle thought about it. Sometimes I'm angry at my family. For dying. For leaving me alone. I know it's not their fault, but I'm angry anyway. And then I feel guilty for being angry, and it's this cycle I can't escape. That's not wrong, Lorenzo said. Grief isn't logical. What about you? Tell me something true. He was quiet for so long Belle thought he might not answer. Then, sometimes I play Russian roulette with an empty gun. Just to remind myself what fear feels like. To prove I'm still capable of feeling anything at all. Belle pulled back to look at him. Lorenzo. I haven't done it since you came here, he added quickly. Since you reminded me that feeling things, even painful things, is better than feeling nothing at all. Tears blurred Belle's vision. Promise me you won't do it again. I promise. I mean it. I know. I promise, Belle. No more empty guns. No more testing whether I care if I live or die. His hand cupped her face. Because now I have a reason to live. You gave me that. I didn't do anything. You saved me. In every way a person can be saved. Belle kissed him again, softer this time, sweeter. A promise rather than desperation. When they finally pulled apart, Lorenzo stood, offered his hand. Stay with me tonight, he said. Just sleep. Nothing else. I don't want to be alone. And I don't think you do either. He was right. The thought of going back to her empty room, lying awake with her nightmares, felt unbearable. Just sleep, Belle confirmed. Just sleep, he agreed. They went upstairs together, hand in hand. In Lorenzo's room, he gave her one of his shirts to wear. She changed in the bathroom, emerged to find him already in bed, propped against the pillows. Belle hesitated at the edge of the bed. I don't bite, Lorenzo said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Unless you ask nicely. Despite everything, Belle laughed. Not helping. Come here. Please. She slid into bed beside him, careful of his injured shoulder. Lorenzo arranged them so her head rested on his chest, his arm around her shoulders, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. Is this okay? He asked. Yeah, Belle whispered. This is okay. They lay in comfortable silence, the moonlight painting patterns on the ceiling. Belle. Thank you. For staying. For giving me a chance. He paused. For seeing me. Thank you for letting me see you. She felt him press a kiss to the top of her head. Sleep, he murmured. I'll keep you safe. And for the first time in 8 years, Belle believed she actually was safe. She fell asleep to the sound of Lorenzo's heartbeat, his arms wrapped around her, neither of them alone anymore. Belle woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the realization that she was alone in the bed. Panic flared before she heard it, the shower running in the attached bathroom. She sat up, Lorenzo's shirt falling off one shoulder, and tried to process what had happened last night. The kiss. The confessions. The way she'd fallen asleep in his arms. What am I doing? The bathroom door opened. Lorenzo emerged in low-slung sweatpants, his hair damp, toweling off his chest with one hand while being careful of his bandaged shoulder. He stopped when he saw she was awake. Good morning, he said softly. Hi. Belle suddenly felt shy, uncertain. Lorenzo crossed to the bed, sat on the edge. Regrets. Belle thought about it honestly. I don't know yet. You? No. Not a single one. He reached out, tucked hair behind her ear in a gesture that was becoming familiar. But I understand if you do. Last night was unexpected, Belle finished. I was going to say inevitable. But unexpected works too. His thumb traced her cheekbone. For the record, I meant everything I said. About caring. About wanting to be better. About. A knock at the door interrupted him. Boss. Victor's voice. We have a situation. Lorenzo's expression shifted instantly, the softness replaced by cold focus. What kind of situation? Petrov's compound. There's movement. Looks like he's preparing to relocate. Lorenzo stood, was already pulling on a shirt. Get everyone ready. We move in 1 hour. Boss, your shoulder. 1 hour, Victor. I'm not letting him slip away. Footsteps retreated down the hall. Belle watched Lorenzo transform before her eyes. The man who'd held her last night, who'd kissed her and confessed his fears, disappeared. The Mafia boss returned. You're going after him, she said. Yes. Let me come with you. Absolutely not. Lorenzo. No, Belle. He turned to face her, his expression fierce. I almost lost you once. I won't risk you again. You stay here, where it's safe. What if something happens to you? It won't. You can't promise that. I can promise I'll do everything in my power to come back to you. He crossed to her, cupped her face in both hands. This is what I do. Let me do it. Let me end this threat so you can finally be free. I don't want to be free if it means you die. The words hung between them, raw and honest. Lorenzo kissed her, hard and desperate and full of everything they hadn't said. I'll come back, he promised against her lips. I swear it. And when I do, we'll figure out what this is between us. We'll have time. But right now, I need to finish this. For both of us. Belle wanted to argue, to demand he stay safe, to beg him not to go. But she understood. This was his world, his war. And she had to trust him to fight it. Come back to me, she whispered. Always, he promised. Then he was gone, leaving Belle alone in his room, surrounded by his scent, terrified that last night was all they'd ever have. Have you ever cared about someone you knew you shouldn't? Someone dangerous, complicated, wrong for you in every way, but right in all the ways that matter? Share your story below. The hours crawled by like years. Belle paced Lorenzo's bedroom, then the library, then the gardens, unable to settle anywhere. Katia tried to distract her with food, with tea, with conversation, but nothing helped. Lorenzo was out there, hunting dangerous men with a bullet wound still healing in his shoulder. And Belle was trapped here, useless, terrified. This is what caring feels like, she thought bitterly. This is why I stayed alone for 8 years. He'll be fine, Katia said for the 100th time. They were in the sitting room now, Belle staring out the window at nothing. He always comes back. Until the time he doesn't. You can't think like that. How else am I supposed to think? Belle turned to face her. He's outnumbered, injured, and going after the most dangerous man on the East Coast. And her voice cracked. I let myself care about him. I let myself fall for him. Katia finished gently. Belle wanted to deny it. But lies had never come easily to her. Yes, she whispered. God help me, yes. Katia moved to her side, took her hand. Then you pray. You hope. You trust that he's as good as he thinks he is. That's all any of us can do when the men we love walk into danger. I don't love him. I can't. It's too soon, too complicated too. The front door crashed open. Both women jumped. Belle's heart leaped Lorenzo, but the footsteps were too many, too chaotic. Victor burst into the sitting room, his face grim, blood on his shirt. Belle's world tilted. No. No, please. He's alive, Victor said quickly. But you need to come with me. Now. What happened? I'll explain on the way. Move. The urgency in his voice overrode Belle's questions. She followed him to the SUV idling in the driveway, Katia right behind her. They were racing through the city before Belle could catch her breath. Tell me, she demanded. Victor's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. It was a trap. Petrov knew we were coming. He was ready for us. Belle's stomach dropped. How many? 3 dead. 5 injured. And the boss, Victor's jaw tightened. He got Petrov. But not before Petrov got him. What does that mean? Petrov was wearing a vest. Took 3 shots before going down. But before he died, he got off 1 shot. Hit the boss in the side, below his vest line. The bullet's still in him, and Dr. Kozlov is with him now, but, he paused. It's bad, Miss Morrison. Really bad. Belle couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. No. Not now. Not when I finally. Where's Victor Kozlov? She asked. The other one. The killer. Victor's expression darkened. Gone. He wasn't there. Petrov must have sent him away before we arrived. We're still looking, but he's in the wind. For now. They pulled up to what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Victor led her inside, through corridors that smelled of rust and blood, to a room where Belle stopped in the doorway, her hand flying to her mouth. Lorenzo lay on a makeshift operating table, his skin gray, his breathing shallow. Blood soaked through the bandages on his torso. Dr. Kozlov worked frantically, his hands moving inside Lorenzo's body while a nurse, where had she come from, held instruments. You shouldn't be here, the doctor said without looking up. This is. I need to be here, Belle interrupted, moving to Lorenzo's side. I need. His eyes fluttered open. Found hers. Belle, he rasped. You're supposed to be safe. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She took his hand, held tight. You promised you'd come back. Did. I'm here. Barely. His mouth quirked in a ghost of his usual smile. Dramatic. Lorenzo, this isn't funny. Found him, Lorenzo interrupted, his voice fading. Petrov. He's dead. Can't hurt you anymore. I don't care about Petrov. I care about you. The words burst out of Belle before she could stop them. You're dying, and you're making jokes, and Not dying, Lorenzo insisted, though his eyes were closing. Just resting. Boss, you need to stay awake, Dr. Kozlov said sharply. I need to get this bullet out, and I need you conscious. The anesthesia is too risky with this much blood loss. Do it, Lorenzo said. It's going to hurt. Don't care. Just keep Belle safe. Promise me. If I don't. You're not dying, Belle said fiercely, squeezing his hand so hard it had to hurt. You don't get to die. Not after last night. Not after, her voice broke. Not after making me care about you. Lorenzo's eyes opened again, focused on her with surprising clarity. Sorry. For that. For dragging you into. Shut up, Belle said, tears streaming down her face. Just shut up and let the doctor work and stop apologizing for being the first person in 8 years to make me feel alive. Something in his expression softened. Belle. Dr. Kozlov cut deeper, and Lorenzo's entire body went rigid. A sound escaped him, raw, agonized, that made Belle want to scream. I'm sorry, the doctor said. The bullets wedged against his rib. I need to. Do it, Lorenzo gasped. Just do it. His hand clenched around Belle's, so hard she felt bones grind. But she didn't pull away. She held on, let him break every bone in her hand if it helped him survive this. Talk to me, Lorenzo said through gritted teeth. Distract me. Tell me something. Anything. What do you want to know? Anything. Everything. Your favorite color. Your first kiss. What you wanted to be when you grew up. Just, he hissed as the doctor probed deeper. Talk. So Belle talked. She told him about her childhood, about climbing trees with her brother Jamie, about her mother's terrible cooking and her father's worst jokes. She told him about her first kiss, Tommy Henderson behind the school gym, all braces and awkwardness. She told him about wanting to be a teacher, about the degree she'd been halfway through when her family died. She talked and talked while Lorenzo held her hand and bled and fought to stay conscious. Got it, Dr. Kozlov finally said, holding up the bullet with forceps. Now I need to close him up. This is going to take a while. How long? Belle asked. An hour. Maybe 2. And then, the doctor's expression was grave. Then we wait and see. He's lost a lot of blood. If infection sets in, or if there's internal damage I missed. He'll be fine, Belle said. She had to believe that. He's Lorenzo Volkov. He doesn't break. Everyone breaks eventually, Miss Morrison. Lorenzo's hand tightened on hers. Not today, he whispered. Not leaving you. Promised. Then keep your promise. The surgery took forever and no time at all. Belle stood beside Lorenzo the entire time, holding his hand, talking when he needed distraction, silent when he needed to focus on breathing. By the time Dr. Kozlov tied off the final stitch, Lorenzo's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow but steady. Is he, Belle couldn't finish the question. Unconscious. His body needs rest. The doctor peeled off bloody gloves. The next 24 hours are critical. If he develops a fever, if the wound shows signs of infection, He'll be fine, Belle repeated. She had to keep saying it. Had to believe it. Victor appeared in the doorway. We need to move him. This place isn't secure. Where? Belle asked. Safe house on the north side. Fully equipped medical facility, defensible position. Victor looked at Lorenzo's unconscious form. Can he be moved? Dr. Kozlov hesitated, then nodded. Carefully. Very carefully. The safe house was smaller than Lorenzo's mansion, but no less secure. Guards everywhere, cameras on every corner, the medical room on the second floor equipped like a small hospital. They settled Lorenzo in a bed, hooked him up to monitors that beeped steadily. Dr. Kozlov administered antibiotics, checked his vitals, and gave Belle a long list of warning signs to watch for. You should rest, the doctor said. You've been standing for hours. I'm not leaving him. Miss Morrison. I'm not leaving. The doctor exchanged a glance with Katya, who'd arrived at the safe house with supplies. Both seemed to understand that arguing was pointless. I'll have food sent up, Katya said. And coffee. You need to keep your strength up. After they left, Belle pulled a chair close to Lorenzo's bed. She took his hand, the four made it awkward, but she didn't care, and watched the steady rise and fall of his chest. You have to wake up, she told him. You have to be okay. Because she stopped, swallowed hard. I finally let myself care about someone, and you don't get to die on me. You don't get to make me feel things and then leave. That's not fair. No response. Just the beeping of monitors and the whisper of his breathing. Belle sat with him as day turned to evening, as evening turned to night. Katya brought food that Belle barely touched. Victor came to update her on the situation. Petrov's organization was in chaos, several key members already killed or arrested, no sign of Viktor Kozlov. None of it mattered. Only the man in the bed mattered. Around midnight, Lorenzo's hand twitched in hers. Belle sat up straight. Lorenzo. His eyes moved beneath closed lids. Dreaming. Or remembering. Then his whole body jerked. The monitors spiked. His breathing became ragged, panicked. Lorenzo. Belle pressed the call button for Dr. Kozlov. Lorenzo, wake up. You're safe. You're. His eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. Elena, he gasped. Elena, run, they're coming, I can't stop them. Belle's heart broke. Lorenzo, I'm not Elena. I'm Belle. You're safe. You're. But he wasn't seeing her. He was somewhere else, someone else, reliving the trauma that had shaped him into the man he'd become. Please, he begged someone who wasn't there. Please don't hurt her. Take me instead. Kill me, just let her go. Dr. Kozlov burst into the room, immediately checking the monitors. He's having a trauma response. The combination of blood loss and stress. How do I help him? Belle demanded. You can't. He has to work through it. His body needs. Lorenzo. Belle cupped his face, forced him to look at her even though his eyes weren't seeing. Lorenzo, listen to my voice. You're not there anymore. Elena's gone, but I'm here. I'm safe. You're safe. Couldn't save her, Lorenzo whispered, tears streaming down his face. Couldn't, they cut her, broke her, sent her back in pieces, and a sound escaped him, raw and shattered. I should have died instead. Should have been me. No, Belle said fiercely. No, you survived. You survived and you built something and you kept going. That's not weakness, Lorenzo. That's strength. I'm not strong. I'm broken. I break everything I touch. You didn't break me. His eyes finally focused on her face. Recognition flickered. Belle. Yes. I'm here. I'm safe. You came back, just like you promised. Did I? He looked down at himself, at the bandages and IVs. Did I get him? Petrov. Yes. He's dead. You got him. Relief crossed Lorenzo's face, followed immediately by pain as he tried to move. Viktor Kozlov? Missing. But they'll find him. No. Lorenzo tried to sit up, gasped at the pain. No, you need to, he'll come for you. If he knows you're with me, he'll. Lorenzo, stop. Belle pressed him back down gently. You're in no condition to worry about this. The house is secure. There are guards everywhere. I'm safe. You're not safe. Not while he's alive. Another wave of pain crossed his face. God, I'm so tired. Then sleep. Rest. Let your body heal. Can't. Need to make sure. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Sleep, Lorenzo. Please. His eyes were already closing again, his body demanding rest despite his will to stay conscious. But before he drifted off, his hand found hers. Don't leave, he whispered. Never, Belle promised. 3 days passed in a blur. Lorenzo drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes lucid, sometimes delirious with fever. Dr. Kozlov fought the infection aggressively, and Belle stayed by his side through all of it. She slept in the chair beside his bed, ate when Katya forced her to, and refused to leave even when Victor suggested she might want to rest properly. I'm fine here, she insisted. But she wasn't fine. She was terrified. Because every time Lorenzo woke up, he seemed a little more resigned. A little more certain that this was how it ended. On the third night, he woke lucid for the first time in 48 hours. You look terrible, he said, his voice rough but clear. Belle laughed. It came out half sob. You're one to talk. Fair. He looked around the room, taking in the medical equipment, the guards visible through the window. We're at the North Side safe house. Yes. How long have I been out? 3 days. Give or take. You had a fever. Dr. Kozlov was worried about sepsis. Lorenzo's expression darkened. And you stayed. Of course I stayed. Why? The question was soft, genuinely confused. As if he couldn't understand why anyone would choose to stay with him. Because you matter to me, Belle said simply. Because I care whether you live or die. Because, she took a breath. Because the thought of losing you made me realize that I've already lost you. That somewhere between hating you and kissing you, I fell for you. And I don't know what to do with that. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. Then, you should go. Belle's heart stopped. What? Leave. While I'm weak. While you can. This, he gestured vaguely at himself, at the room, at everything. This isn't a life. This is violence and fear and waiting for the next attack. You deserve better. Don't I get to decide what I deserve? No. Because you'll choose me, and you'll regret it. Everyone who's ever cared about me has ended up dead or destroyed. Elena. Alexei. My mother. I'm poison, Belle. I contaminate everything I touch. That's not true. Isn't it? You were safe and invisible before you met me. Now you're a target. Now Viktor Kozlov knows your name, knows you matter to me. He'll come for you. And when he does, Lorenzo's voice cracked. When he does, he'll hurt you to hurt me. He'll make me watch you die the way I watched Elena die. And I can't, he turned his face away. I can't survive that again. I can't watch another person I care about suffer because of me. Belle stood, moved to the bed, forced him to look at her. So that's it? She asked, anger and hurt warring in her chest. You're going to push me away for my own good? Make that choice for me. Yes. That's bullshit, Lorenzo. That's you being scared and calling it noble. I'm trying to save your life. I don't need saving from you. I need, she stopped, tears streaming down her face. I need you to trust me. To trust that I know what I'm getting into. To believe that maybe, just maybe, I'm strong enough to handle your world. You are strong enough. That's not the question. The question is whether I'm selfish enough to let you try. Lorenzo reached up with his good hand, wiped away her tears. And the answer is no. I've been selfish my whole life, Belle. I've taken what I wanted without caring about the cost. But not this time. Not with you. You deserve a chance at a real life. A safe life. Without me in it. What if I don't want a life without you in it? Then you're not thinking clearly. You're traumatized, grateful I kept you safe, confusing protection with. Don't. Belle's voice was sharp. Don't minimize what I feel. Don't tell me I don't know my own heart. I'm not some child who can't tell the difference between gratitude and, she stopped, the word catching in her throat. And what? Lorenzo pressed. Say it, Belle. What do you think you feel? I think I'm falling in love with you, she whispered. And that terrifies me more than Viktor Kozlov or the Bratva or anything else in your world. Because I swore I'd never let myself care about anyone again. I swore I'd stay alone, stay safe. But you, her voice broke. You made me feel things. You made me want things. You made me believe I could have something more than just survival. Lorenzo's eyes closed, his face twisted with pain that had nothing to do with his injuries. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry, Belle. But I can't, I won't, be responsible for your death. I won't watch you suffer because of my choices. So I'm making this choice for you. When I'm healed, when Viktor Kozlov is handled, I'm letting you go. I'll give you money, a new identity if you want it, protection until you're established somewhere far from here. But you need to leave. For both our sakes. You're pushing me away. I'm setting you free. I don't want to be free. Belle's hands clenched into fists. I want, God, I want so many impossible things. I want to wake up without nightmares. I want to stop looking over my shoulder. I want my family back. I want 8 years of my life back. But most of all right now, I want you to stop making decisions for me. I want you to trust that I'm capable of choosing my own path. Even if that path includes you. Belle. No. You don't get to Belle me. You don't get to kiss me and hold me and tell me I matter and then push me away the second things get hard. That's not fair. That's not, she stopped, a horrible thought occurring to her. Unless you don't actually feel what you said you felt. Unless it was all just. It wasn't. Lorenzo's voice was fierce. Everything I said was true. I care about you more than I've cared about anyone in 15 years. You've changed me, made me want to be better. But that's exactly why I need to let you go. Because caring about you makes you a target. And I can't, lose someone else I love. The word hung between them like a bomb. Love. He'd said love. You love me, Belle whispered. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. I didn't mean. You love me. It doesn't matter what I feel. What matters is. It's the only thing that matters. Belle moved closer, took his hand despite his attempt to pull away. Lorenzo, I spent 8 years being dead inside. 8 years believing I didn't deserve happiness or connection or love because my family died and I survived. And then you happened. You with your violence and your piano and your broken promises to yourself. You made me feel alive again. You made me want to live, not just survive. And if you think I'm going to walk away from that because it's dangerous, you don't know me at all. Belle, please. No. You said I deserve a choice. So let me choose. Let me decide whether loving you is worth the risk. And if Viktor kills you? If Petrov's allies come for revenge? If Then at least I'll have lived first. Really lived. With someone who saw me, all of me, and cared anyway. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Don't take that away from me. Don't make me go back to being invisible. Please. Lorenzo's resistance crumbled. She saw it in his eyes, the moment he stopped fighting, the moment he let himself hope. I'm going to get you killed, he said. Maybe. Or maybe we'll figure it out together. This is insane. Yes. We barely know each other. Then we'll learn. I'm a terrible person. You're a complicated person. There's a difference. Lorenzo pulled her down to him, carefully, mindful of his injuries, and kissed her. Desperate and tender and full of everything they tried to deny. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. I love you, he whispered. God help me, I love you. And that terrifies me more than any enemy I've ever faced. I love you too, Belle admitted. Even though I shouldn't. Even though it's crazy. I love you. They held each other in the quiet room, two broken souls clinging to something fragile and precious and possibly doomed. Neither of them saw the shadow move past the window. Neither of them heard the soft click of a camera shutter. Neither of them knew that Viktor Kozlov, the man who destroyed both their families, was watching. Waiting. Planning. The attack came at dawn. Belle was dozing in the chair beside Lorenzo's bed when the first explosion shattered the morning silence. The windows blew inward. Glass rained down. Alarms shrieked. Lorenzo was on his feet before Belle fully registered what was happening, moving on instinct and adrenaline despite his injuries. Get down, he shouted, pulling her to the floor as gunfire erupted outside. What's happening? Belle gasped. They found us. Lorenzo was already reaching for the gun Viktor had left on the bedside table. Stay low. Stay behind me. The door burst open. One of the guards stumbled in, blood pouring from a shoulder wound. Boss, we're under attack. At least 20 men. He collapsed. Lorenzo caught him, lowered him gently. Where's Viktor? Pinned down. First floor. They came from everywhere, boss. It's like they knew exactly, the guard's eyes widened. It's a trap. This whole place is a trap. Understanding dawned on Lorenzo's face. They wanted us here. Wanted us in one place, injured and vulnerable. More explosions. Closer now. We need to move, Lorenzo said, helping Belle to her feet. There's a tunnel. Basement level. Leads to a garage 3 blocks away. We go now. You can barely walk. I can walk. Let's go. They made it to the hallway before Viktor appeared, bloodied but alive. Boss, they've got the exits covered. The tunnel's our only shot, but, he stopped, his expression grim. Viktor Kozlov is here. I saw him. He's leading the attack. Belle's blood ran cold. Lorenzo's hand tightened on his gun. Then we end this. Now. Boss, you're in no condition. I'm in perfect condition to kill the man who murdered my brother and her family. Lorenzo's voice was ice. Get Belle to the tunnel. Get her out. No, Belle said. I'm not leaving you. Belle. We go together or we don't go at all. An explosion, much closer, rocked the building. Dust rained from the ceiling. We don't have time to argue, Viktor said. Move. They ran, Lorenzo leaning on Belle more than he'd admit, Viktor covering their rear, through corridors filled with smoke and the sound of gunfire. They'd almost reached the basement stairs when a figure stepped out of the shadows. Viktor Kozlov. Older than his photograph. Gray-haired. Unremarkable except for his eyes. Those cold, empty eyes that Belle had seen in her nightmares for 8 years. Lorenzo Volkov, he said in that thick accent Belle remembered from the worst night of her life. And little Isabel Morrison. Together. How convenient. Lorenzo raised his gun. Move and you're dead. Am I? You look like you can barely stand. Viktor's smile was reptilian. I've been waiting for this. Waiting to finish what I started 15 years ago. Waiting to take everything from you the way you took everything from me. I took nothing from you. You killed my brother. Under orders. Just business. But you, Viktor's eyes glittered. You made it personal. You hunted me. Shot me 3 times. Left me for dead in that river. Do you know how long it took me to recover? How many surgeries? How much pain? Not long enough, Lorenzo said. Viktor's gun swung toward Belle. Everything happened in slow motion. Lorenzo moved, too slow, hampered by his injuries. Viktor's finger tightened on the trigger. Belle dove sideways. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Pain exploded in Belle's side. She hit the ground hard, couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the fire spreading through her ribs. Belle. Lorenzo's roar was anguished, primal. More gunshots. Shouting. Belle's vision swam. She tried to move, couldn't. Warm wetness spread across her shirt. Blood, she realized distantly. Her blood. This is it. This is how it ends. Just like my family. But then Lorenzo was there, his face above hers, his hands pressing against her wound. No, 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 he was saying over and over. Stay with me, Belle. Stay with me. You don't get to die. You don't. Lorenzo, her voice was barely a whisper. Don't talk. Save your strength. Dr. Kozlov. Kozlov. Everything was fading, sounds becoming distant, Lorenzo's face blurring. I love you, she managed to say. Don't you dare say goodbye. Don't you, Belle, please. Darkness pulled her under like a wave. The last thing she heard was Lorenzo screaming her name. Beep. 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 The sound pulled Belle back from darkness slowly, reluctantly. Everything hurt. Her side felt like it was on fire, her head pounded, and her mouth tasted like copper and ash. But she was alive. I'm alive. Belle's eyes fluttered open. White ceiling. Sterile smell. The steady beep of a heart monitor. A hospital room. She turned her head, slowly, because even that small movement sent pain radiating through her body, and saw him. Lorenzo sat slumped in a chair beside her bed, his head resting on the mattress near her hand, asleep. He looked terrible, pale, dark circles under his eyes, his bandages visible beneath a wrinkled t-shirt. His hand was wrapped around hers, holding on even in sleep. How long has he been here? Belle tried to speak, managed only a dry croak. Lorenzo's eyes snapped open instantly. When he saw she was awake, his entire face transformed. Belle. Her name was a prayer, a sob, a celebration. You're awake. Thank God you're. He pressed the call button frantically. Doctor. She's awake. What? Belle's voice was barely a whisper. What happened? You were shot. The bullet went through, missed anything vital, thank God, but you lost a lot of blood. You've been unconscious for 2 days. His hand tightened on hers. 2 days, Belle. Do you have any idea? His voice cracked. I thought I'd lost you. Memories came flooding back. The attack. Viktor Kozlov stepping from the shadows. The gun. The pain. Victor, she gasped. He's dead. Lorenzo's voice was cold, final. I killed him. After he shot you, he stopped, his jaw tightening. He won't hurt anyone ever again. A doctor bustled in, not Dr. Kozlov, but a woman in her 40s with kind eyes. Miss Morrison, welcome back. I'm Dr. Chen. How are you feeling? Like I got shot, Belle managed. Dr. Chen smiled. That's accurate. You're very lucky. The bullet passed through cleanly, missed major organs and arteries. You'll be sore for a while, and you'll need physical therapy, but you should make a full recovery. Relief flooded through Belle so powerfully she felt tears sting her eyes. Can we have a moment? Lorenzo asked the doctor. Dr. Chen checked Belle's vitals, made notes on a chart, then nodded. 5 minutes. Then she needs rest. After the doctor left, Lorenzo and Belle stared at each other. You almost died, he said finally. So did you. Multiple times. This is different. You were shot because of me. Because Victor wanted to hurt me by hurting you. He released her hand, stood abruptly, began pacing. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Exactly what I tried to prevent by pushing you away. Lorenzo. No. Listen to me. He stopped pacing, faced her. I love you. God, I love you so much it terrifies me. But that love put you in a hospital bed with a bullet hole in your side. That love almost got you killed. And I can't, his voice broke. I can't do this. I can't watch you almost die again. I can't live knowing that every day you're with me is a day you're in danger. Belle's heart cracked. What are you saying? I'm saying I was right before. You need to leave. Get far away from me, from this life, from all of it. He moved to the window, his back to her. I'll set you up with everything you need. New identity, money, protection until you're established somewhere safe. Somewhere I can't touch. Somewhere my enemies can't find you. And that's it? You just decide for both of us. It's the only way to keep you safe. I don't want to be safe. Belle tried to sit up, gasped at the pain. I want to be with you. I want. What you want doesn't matter. Lorenzo whirled to face her, and Belle saw tears on his face. Don't you understand? Everyone I love dies. My mother, my brother, Elena, and I'll be damned if I add you to that list. I won't watch you die, Belle. I won't survive it. So you're going to push me away instead? Make me live without you? That's supposed to be better. It's supposed to keep you alive. I don't want to just be alive. Belle's voice rose, even though it hurt to yell. I want to live. I want love and connection, and yes, even danger if it means being with someone who sees me. Someone who makes me feel like I matter. You do matter. That's why. No. Belle cut him off. If I mattered, you'd trust me to make my own choices. You'd trust that I know the risks and I'm choosing you anyway. But instead, you're doing exactly what you accused yourself of. You're being selfish. You're protecting yourself from pain by pushing me away. You're choosing your fear over my agency. Lorenzo flinched like she'd struck him. That's not. Isn't it? You're so terrified of losing me that you'd rather lose me on your terms. That's not love, Lorenzo. That's control. Silence crashed between them, heavy and painful. You're right, Lorenzo said finally, his voice hollow. You're absolutely right. I am choosing my fear. Because the alternative, watching you die because of me, is something I can't survive. So yes, I'm being selfish. I'm protecting myself. And I'm sorry for that. But I'm not changing my mind. Belle felt something inside her shatter. So that's it. After everything, after the confessions and the kisses and the promises, you're just going to walk away. I'm trying to save your life. I don't need you to save me. I need you to love me enough to stay. Lorenzo's hands clenched into fists. I love you too much to stay. Don't you see that? Every moment you're near me, you're in danger. Victor's dead, but there will be others. There are always others. Petrov's allies, rival families, enemies I haven't even made yet. Being with me is a death sentence, Belle. And I can't, sentence you to that. What about what I want? What you want is going to get you killed. And what you want is going to kill me anyway. Belle's voice cracked. Just slower. Just from the inside out. You think I can go back to being invisible after this? After knowing what it's like to be seen? After loving you? Lorenzo's composure cracked. Please don't make this harder than it already is. Why? Because you might change your mind? Because you might realize that pushing away everyone who loves you isn't noble, it's just lonely. I've been lonely for 15 years. I can handle it. But can I? Belle whispered. Can I go back to my empty life knowing what I'm missing? Knowing you're out there somewhere, alone, convincing yourself that martyrdom is the same as love. Lorenzo moved to her bedside, cupped her face in his hands. His thumbs wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I love you, he said, his voice breaking. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. And that's exactly why I have to let you go. Because love means wanting what's best for the other person, even when it destroys you. Especially when it destroys you. Lorenzo, please. He kissed her. Soft and desperate and tasting of salt from both their tears. When he pulled back, his eyes were red but resolute. I've already made the arrangements, he said. There's an account in your new name with enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your life. A house in Colorado, small town, quiet, safe. New documents, new history. Victor will help you disappear completely. By this time next week, Isabel Morrison will cease to exist. And what about Belle? The woman who loves you. Does she cease to exist too? She has to. Lorenzo's voice was barely a whisper. For her own good. For her own survival. He released her face, stepped back. I'll let you rest. The doctor says you can be discharged in a few days. Victor will handle the transfer. He moved toward the door, his movement stiff, mechanical. Goodbye, Belle. He stopped, couldn't finish. Don't, Belle said, her voice hollow. Don't say goodbye like this is noble. Like you're doing me a favor. You're breaking my heart and calling it protection, and her voice broke. I won't forgive you for this. Lorenzo's hand was on the doorknob. He didn't turn around. I know, he said quietly. I don't expect you to. I just expect you to live. That's all I need. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click that sounded like finality. Belle stared at the empty space where he'd stood, her chest hollow, her heart shattered into pieces she didn't know how to put back together. She'd survived her family's murder. She'd survived 8 years alone. She'd survived a bullet. But she didn't know if she could survive losing Lorenzo Volkov. 3 days later, Belle sat in the back of an SUV, watching Lorenzo's world disappear through the tinted windows. Victor, Lorenzo's lieutenant, not the killer, drove in silence. In the back seat beside Belle was a duffel bag containing her new life, documents, keys, account information. Everything she needed to become someone else. Again. He's doing this because he loves you, Victor said quietly. Belle didn't answer. She'd run out of words. Run out of tears. Run out of everything except a hollow ache that filled her chest. I've known him for 12 years, Victor continued. I've seen him ruthless, cold, calculating. But I've never seen him cry. Not once. Not even when he stopped. He cried when you were shot. Held you and screamed and cried like the world was ending. That's how much you mean to him. Then why is he sending me away? Because everyone he's ever loved has died violently. And he'd rather die himself than watch it happen to you. Belle looked out the window, watching the city give way to suburbs to countryside. Every mile taking her farther from Lorenzo. From the first person in 8 years who'd made her feel alive. Does it ever stop hurting? She asked. Losing someone you love? Victor was quiet for a long moment. No, he admitted. But it becomes bearable. Eventually. They drove for hours, Belle watching the landscape change, trying to imagine her new life in this small Colorado town she'd never seen. A house that wasn't hers. An identity that wasn't real. A life that was safe and empty and utterly without meaning. This is what you wanted, she reminded herself. To be invisible. To be safe. To not care about anyone who could be taken away. But that was before. Before Lorenzo. Before she'd remembered what it felt like to be seen. To matter. To love and be loved in return. Around sunset, Victor's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression darkening. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. Understood. I'll tell her. He hung up, met Belle's eyes in the rearview mirror. There's been an attack, he said. On the north side safe house. The one where you recovered. Belle's stomach dropped. Lorenzo is fine. But 6 of our men are dead. It was coordinated, professional. Someone knew the location, the security protocols, the shift changes. Another rival family? We don't know. But Belle, Victor's expression was grim. Someone on the inside helped them. There's a traitor in the organization. And until we find them, nowhere is safe. Not even for you in Colorado. Belle's mind raced. You think they'll come after me? I think anyone associated with Lorenzo is a target. And you, he paused. You're more than associated. The whole underworld knows by now. The woman Lorenzo Volkov loves. The one he's sending away to protect. Your leverage. Your a weakness, Belle finished. I'm his weakness. Yes. They drove in silence for several more miles. Then Belle made a decision. Turn around, she said. Victor's eyes met hers in the mirror. What? Turn around. Take me back. Miss Morrison, that's not. If I'm leverage either way, if I'm a target whether I'm with him or hiding in Colorado, then I choose to be with him. Belle's voice grew stronger. I choose to face the danger together rather than apart. I choose love over safety. So turn around. Now. Lorenzo will kill me. Lorenzo will understand. Eventually. Turn around, Victor. Please. Victor studied her in the mirror for a long moment. Then slowly, he smiled. He said you were brave, Victor said, already pulling off at the next exit to turn around. He didn't say you were stubborn as hell, too. It's part of my charm. As they headed back toward the city, back toward Lorenzo, back toward danger and love and all the impossible choices that came with both, Belle felt something settle in her chest. This is the right choice. The only choice. She'd spent 8 years running from life, from connection, from anything that might hurt her. She was done running. Belle found him in the music room. It was past midnight. The mansion was quiet, most of the guards outside, the household asleep. But Lorenzo sat at the piano, playing something she didn't recognize. Something sad and haunting and achingly beautiful. She stood in the doorway, watching him. Even from behind, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands trembled slightly on the keys. He knew she was there, she could tell by the way his playing faltered, but he didn't turn around. You're supposed to be in Colorado, he said quietly. I was. I turned around. Belle. No. Don't bell me. Don't tell me I made a mistake. Don't tell me to leave. She moved into the room, her steps careful, her side still ached from the bullet wound. I know about the attack. About the traitor. About the fact that I'm not safe anywhere because loving you makes me a target. His hands stilled on the keys. Then you understand why you can't be here. I understand why I have to be here. Belle reached the piano, stood where he had to look at her. Being apart doesn't make me safer, Lorenzo. It just makes us both miserable. And I'd rather face danger with you than safety without you. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I choose you. I choose us. I choose love over fear. She took his hand. And I'm asking you to choose the same thing. Lorenzo looked up at her, and in his eyes, she saw a war raging. Fear against hope. Self-preservation against connection. The lonely safety he'd known for 15 years against the terrifying possibility of something more. I can't protect you, he said. Not completely. There will always be threats, always be danger. I can't promise you safety. I don't want safety. I want you. Belle, if something happens to you, then something happens. But at least we'll have lived first. Really lived. Together. She squeezed his hand. Lorenzo, I've spent 8 years in a cage of my own making. Safe and alone and half dead. You opened that cage. You reminded me what it means to be alive. And I'm not going back. Not for you, not for anyone. You're insane, he whispered. But his hand tightened on hers. Probably. But so are you for loving me. Belle smiled through her tears. So what do you say? Are we going to be insane together or apart? Lorenzo stood slowly, pulled her close, carefully, mindful of both their injuries. His forehead rested against hers. If I let you stay. When you let me stay, Belle corrected. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. When I let you stay, you need to understand. My world is violent. My enemies are ruthless. There will be attacks, betrayals, nights where we don't know if we'll survive until morning. I can give you wealth and protection and all the security money can buy, but I can't give you normal. I can't give you safe. I don't want normal. I want real. And this, she pressed her hand over his heart. This is real. You could die. We're all dying, Lorenzo. From the moment we're born. The only question is whether we live first. He pulled back to look at her, really look at her. And Belle saw the moment he stopped fighting. The moment he let himself hope. If we do this, he said, we do it right. No more pushing you away. No more making decisions for you. We are partners. Equals. In everything. Yes. You help me find the traitor. You help me rebuild the security protocols. He paused. You become part of this world. All of it. The violence and the danger and the impossible choices. I'm already part of it. I have been since the moment I slipped you that note. Lorenzo's hand cupped her face. I love you. And I'm terrified of what that means. But I'm more terrified of living without you. Then don't. Belle stood on her toes, ignoring the pain in her side, and kissed him. Choose me. Choose us. Choose to believe that maybe, just maybe, we can survive this together. When they broke apart, Lorenzo's eyes were wet but clear. Okay, he said. Okay. You can stay. Not can. Will. You will stay. With me. Forever if you'll have me. Forever sounds good. He kissed her again, deeper this time, full of promise and possibility and the terrifying beauty of choosing love over safety. When they finally pulled apart, Lorenzo took her hand, laced his fingers through hers. There's something you need to see, he said. Something I should have shown you before. He led her from the music room, through corridors Belle had walked a dozen times, to a door she'd never noticed before. Hidden in the paneling, locked with a keypad. Lorenzo entered the code, pushed the door open. Inside was a small room, windowless and secure. And covering every wall were photographs, documents, maps. What is this? Belle asked. My war room. Where I've been tracking everyone who's ever hurt someone I cared about. Lorenzo moved to one wall, touched a photograph. Here. This is why I know we can survive this. This is why I believe we have a chance. Belle moved closer, looked at the photograph he'd indicated. It was Viktor Kozlov, the killer, with a red X drawn through his face. But it wasn't alone. There were dozens of other photographs. Other names. Other enemies. Some with red XS, some still active. I've spent 15 years hunting monsters, Lorenzo said quietly. Taking them down one by one. Making the world safer, even if just incrementally. And I've survived because I had nothing to lose. No one to care about. No reason to be careful. And now I have you. Which means I have everything to lose. He turned to face her. But it also means I have everything to fight for. A reason to be strategic instead of reckless. A reason to build something lasting instead of just tearing things down. Belle studied the wall, the evidence of Lorenzo's private war. What are you saying? I'm saying we hunt the traitor together. We find whoever's trying to kill us. We eliminate the threat. And then, he pulled her close. Then we build something new. Something better. An organization that doesn't just survive through fear and violence, but one that protects. That helps. That does some good in the world, Belle finished. Yes. I know it sounds naive. I know people will say a mafia boss can't change. But with you, his voice caught. With you, I want to try. Belle looked at this man, this complicated, dangerous, beautiful man who'd saved her and broken her and put her back together. Who'd shown her that survival wasn't the same as living. Who'd reminded her that love was worth the risk. Then we try together, she said. We hunt the monsters. We protect the innocent. We build something better. Together. Lorenzo kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Together, he agreed. They stood in the war room, surrounded by ghosts of the past, planning for a future neither of them could guarantee. But for the first time in 15 years for him and 8 years for her, they weren't alone. They had each other. And sometimes, that was enough. 2 months later. Belle stood at the window of Lorenzo's study, their study now, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. So much had changed in 8 weeks. They'd found the traitor, Marco, Lorenzo's cousin, who'd been feeding information to Petrov's allies in exchange for a promised position of power after Lorenzo's death. The betrayal had cut deep, family turning against family, but Lorenzo had handled it with cold efficiency. Marco was gone now, exiled to a remote location where he could do no more harm, stripped of everything but his life. A mercy he didn't deserve, Lorenzo had said. But one I'm giving him anyway. For his mother's sake. For the man I'm trying to become. They'd restructured the organization from the ground up. New security protocols, New leadership, new rules. Lorenzo was slowly transforming his empire from pure criminality into something more complex, still operating in the shadows, still dangerous, but with a code. No human trafficking. No harming innocents. Protection for those who couldn't protect themselves. We're still criminals, Belle had said one night, lying in his arms. Yes, Lorenzo had agreed. But we can choose what kind of criminals to be. It wasn't redemption. Not really. But it was a start. Belle heard him before she saw him. The soft footsteps, the careful movements of someone still healing from his own bullet wounds. Arms wrapped around her waist from behind, pulling her back against his chest. You're up early, Lorenzo murmured against her neck. Couldn't sleep. Nightmares. No. Just thinking. She'd had fewer nightmares in the past 2 months than in the previous 8 years combined. Something about sharing a bed with Lorenzo, about not being alone with her demons, had quieted them. They hadn't disappeared, she didn't think they ever would, but they'd become manageable. Thinking about what? Lorenzo asked, his hands splaying across her stomach. Belle covered his hands with hers. About how different everything is. How 2 months ago, I was invisible. Alone. Convinced I'd spend the rest of my life running from my past. And now I'm standing in a mafia boss's mansion, helping him run a criminal empire, planning security protocols and investigating threats. She turned in his arms to face him. Now I'm with someone who sees all of me, the broken parts and the strong parts, and loves me anyway. I do love you, Lorenzo said, his gray eyes soft in the morning light. More than I thought possible. More than is probably smart. Good thing I love you back then. Just as stupidly. He kissed her, slow and sweet. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I have something for you, he said. Lorenzo, I don't need. I know you don't need anything. But I want to give you this. He pulled a small box from his pocket, handed it to her. Belle's heart stuttered. If this is. It's not a ring, Lorenzo said quickly. Not yet. Not until you're ready for that conversation. This is something else. Belle opened the box. Inside was a key. Old-fashioned, ornate, attached to a simple chain. What is this? She asked. The key to the music room. My mother gave it to my father when they first married. She said it was the key to her heart, that music was where she kept her soul, and by giving him the key, she was giving him access to all of her. Lorenzo took the key, fastened the chain around Belle's neck. I want you to have it. As a symbol. You have access to all of me, Belle. The music and the violence. The past and the future. All of it. Tears blurred Belle's vision. Lorenzo. And he pulled out a second, smaller item. A flash drive. This is more practical. It contains all the evidence I've gathered over the years. Names, dates, crimes. Everything I know about every family operating in the city and beyond. If anything happens to me, you'll need it to protect yourself. To negotiate. To. Belle pressed her fingers to his lips. Nothing's going to happen to you. You can't promise that. Neither can you. But we can promise to face it together. She took the flash drive, slipped it into her pocket. Thank you. For trusting me with this. With everything. I trust you with my life, Belle. With my heart. With all the broken pieces I've spent 15 years hiding. They held each other as the sun rose higher, painting the room in warm light. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Come, Lorenzo called. Victor entered, his expression carefully neutral. Boss. Miss Morrison. We have a situation. Belle and Lorenzo exchanged glances. In the past 2 months, they'd handled 7 situations, territorial disputes, betrayals, attacks from rival families. Each one they'd navigated together, Belle's fresh perspective often seeing solutions Lorenzo's jaded experience missed. What kind of situation? Lorenzo asked. The good kind, actually. We received a message from the Italians. They want to meet. Discuss a truce. Lorenzo's eyebrows rose. A truce? They've been pushing against our territory for months. Turns out with Petrov dead and your organization restructured, they're nervous. They want to negotiate boundaries, establish rules of engagement. No more open conflict. Victor paused. They specifically requested that you bring Miss Morrison to the meeting. Why? Belle asked. Because word's gotten out about what you're doing. About the changes you've implemented. No human trafficking, protection for civilians, reduced violence. Some of the old families, the ones who still have a code, they're interested. They want to see if it's real or just PR. Lorenzo looked at Belle. What do you think? I think, Belle considered carefully. I think we take the meeting. We show them it's real. We build alliances instead of enemies. We prove that this world doesn't have to be all violence and fear. It's risky, Lorenzo warned. Everything we do is risky. But this, Belle smiled. This could be the start of something bigger. Something better. Lorenzo turned to Victor. Set up the meeting. Neutral ground. Full security. And Victor. Yes, boss. Thank you. For everything. For protecting Belle when I was too stubborn to see what I had. For not following my order to take her to Colorado. He paused. For being more than an employee. For being a friend. Victor's scarred face softened. It's an honor, boss. For both of you. After he left, Belle took Lorenzo's hand. Ready to change the world? She asked. With you? Always. The meeting with the Italians was held at the Crimson Lounge, the same bar where Belle had saved Lorenzo's life. It had been renovated, cleaned up, operating now under Lorenzo's protection as neutral ground where families could meet without violence. Belle walked through the door, Lorenzo at her side, and was struck by memory. 2 months ago, she'd been just a bartender. Invisible. Alone. Slipping a note to a dangerous man because she couldn't watch another person die. Now she was walking into a room full of dangerous men as an equal. As Lorenzo Volkov's partner. The head of the Italian family, an older man named Sal Carmine, stood when they entered. Mr. Volkov. Miss Morrison. Thank you for meeting with us. They settled into a private booth. Guards on both sides watched carefully, hands near weapons, ready for any betrayal. But the negotiation was surprisingly civil. Sal laid out his proposal, clear territorial boundaries, no more encroachment, mutual respect. In exchange, he wanted access to Lorenzo's new system, the code that protected civilians, that reduced unnecessary violence. My granddaughter, Sal said quietly, she's 8 years old. Smart as a whip. Wants to be a doctor. He pulled out a photo, a little girl with dark curls and a bright smile. I want her to grow up in a world where she doesn't have to be ashamed of her family name. Where we do business, yes, but we're not monsters. Your lady here, he nodded to Belle. Word is she's changing how you operate. Making it about more than just money and power. That's what I want for my family too. Belle felt Lorenzo's hand find hers under the table. Miss Morrison has indeed changed my perspective, Lorenzo said. She's helped me remember that power without purpose is just tyranny. That we can operate in the shadows and still have a code. Still protect the innocent. Even when the innocent are our own families, Belle added. Your granddaughter shouldn't have to pay for the choices her family makes. None of the children should. Sal studied her for a long moment. You really believe that? That we can be better? I believe we can try. And trying is more than most people do. The negotiation took hours. By the end, they had an agreement, signed, witnessed, binding in the only way that mattered in their world, honor and fear of consequences. As Sal was leaving, he paused, looked back at Belle. I heard what happened to your family, he said quietly. 8 years ago. I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm sorry our world did that to you. Belle's throat tightened. Thank you. You're changing this world, Miss Morrison. Changing him, he nodded toward Lorenzo. And by extension, changing all of us. That takes courage. And it's going to make enemies. So watch your back. I have people watching it for me, Belle said, glancing at Lorenzo. Good. You'll need them. After Sal left, Belle and Lorenzo sat alone in the booth. We did it, Belle said. We actually got a truce with the Italians. You did it. They came because of you. Because of what you represent. I represent hope. You represent the possibility that monsters can change. That's powerful, Belle. More powerful than any weapon I've ever had. They sat in the quiet bar, in the same place where everything had started, and Belle felt something settle in her chest. Not peace, she wasn't sure she'd ever have true peace. But something close. Purpose. Belonging. Love. Take me home, she said. Lorenzo smiled. Which home? The mansion? The safe house? Wherever you are. That's home. That night, they returned to the music room. It had become their sanctuary, the place they went when the world was too heavy, when the violence and danger and impossible choices threatened to overwhelm them. Lorenzo sat at the piano, Belle beside him on the bench. Play something, she said. What do you want to hear? Something hopeful. Something that sounds like a beginning, not an ending. Lorenzo thought for a moment, then his fingers found the keys. He played something Belle didn't recognize at first, gentle questioning, building slowly into something powerful and beautiful. What is this? She asked. I don't know yet. I'm making it up as I go. His hands moved across the keys, creating melody from nothing. It's our song. Yours and mine. Still being written. Belle rested her head on his shoulder, listening as he composed their future in music. When the song finally ended, on a note that felt both resolved and full of possibility, Lorenzo turned to her. Marry me, he said. Belle's breath caught. What? I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. I know we're both broken and dangerous, and this whole thing is insane. His hand cupped her face. But I love you, Belle. I want to spend every day trying to be better because of you. I want to build something real with you. He paused. I want to make promises I can keep. And the promise I most want to make is that you'll never be alone again. That for the rest of our lives, however long or short they may be, we face everything together. Tears streamed down Belle's face. That wasn't a question. Belle Morrison, will you marry me? Will you be my partner in everything, the music and the violence, the danger and the hope? Will you help me remember every day that I'm human, not just a monster? Will you? Yes. Belle kissed him, tasting salt and joy and terrified hope. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be your partner. Yes to all of it. Lorenzo pulled a ring from his pocket, simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the light like a promise. I was going to wait, he admitted, sliding it onto her finger. Give you more time. But life's too short and too dangerous to wait for the perfect moment. This is our moment. Right here. Right now. Belle looked at the ring on her finger, then at the man beside her. 2 months ago, she'd been invisible. Alone. Convinced she'd spend her life running from anything that might hurt her. Now she was engaged to a mafia boss, helping run a criminal empire, and somehow impossibly happy. I love you, she said. Even though you're dangerous and complicated and probably going to get us both killed. I love you too. Even though you're stubborn and brave and made me feel things I swore I'd never feel again. They kissed in the music room, the place where Lorenzo kept his soul, surrounded by the instruments that reminded him of his mother's love and his brother's laughter and all the good things that had existed before the violence consumed everything. But the violence hadn't consumed everything. It hadn't consumed him. And it wouldn't consume them. 6 months later. The wedding was small, private, held in the mansion's gardens under a canopy of stars. Katia cried through the entire ceremony. Victor stood as Lorenzo's best man, his scarred face soft with genuine happiness. A handful of trusted allies attended, the ones who'd proven their loyalty through fire and blood. Belle wore a simple white dress, carried wildflowers from the garden. Lorenzo wore a black suit that made him look like the dangerous man he was and the hopeful man he was becoming. The officiant was a priest who'd known Lorenzo's mother, who remembered when the Volkov family had been more than just violence and fear. Do you, Lorenzo Volkov, take Isabelle Morrison to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold in sickness and in health, in danger and in peace, for as long as you both shall live. I do, Lorenzo said, his voice steady. I promise to protect her, cherish her, and try every day to be worthy of the gift she's given me. I promise to choose her over fear, over safety, over everything. I promise to love her with everything I have left in me. The priest turned to Belle. And do you, Isabelle Morrison, take Lorenzo Volkov to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold in sickness and in health, in danger and in peace, for as long as you both shall live. Belle looked at Lorenzo, at this complicated, dangerous, beautiful man who'd saved her by letting her save him. I do, she said. I promise to stand beside him, to challenge him when he's wrong, to support him when he's right. I promise to see all of him, the monster and the man, and love both. I promise to choose courage over safety, connection over isolation. I promise to love him for exactly who he is and who he's trying to become. They exchanged rings, matching bands engraved with words only they would understand. Together. By the power vested in me, the priest said, smiling, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Lorenzo pulled Belle close and kissed her as their small gathering erupted in applause. When they broke apart, he whispered against her lips, Thank you. For what? For slipping me that note. For opening the door. For choosing me. For everything. Thank you for being worth choosing. The reception was held in the ballroom, a room Belle had only seen once before, empty and echoing. Now it was filled with music and laughter and the kind of joy that came from surviving impossible odds. Lorenzo led Belle onto the dance floor for their first dance. He'd chosen the song, the one he'd composed that night in the music room. Their song. Still being written. I didn't know you'd recorded it, Belle said as the melody filled the room. I wanted to remember. The night I asked you to marry me. The night everything changed. They swayed together, and Belle rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Are you happy? She asked. Happier than I thought possible. You? Terrified. Hopeful. In love. All of it at once. That's marriage, I think. All the emotions, all the time. Belle laughed. What would you know about marriage? You've been married for approximately 45 minutes. And they've been the best 45 minutes of my life. The song ended. Another began. They kept dancing. Around them, their world continued, dangerous, complicated, full of threats they couldn't always see. But for this moment, in this room, surrounded by the few people they trusted, they were safe. They were together. And that was enough. 1 year later. Belle stood at the window of what had once been Lorenzo's study and was now truly theirs, one hand pressed to her slightly rounded stomach. The pregnancy had been a surprise, a terrifying, wonderful surprise that had sent Lorenzo into a spiral of fear and hope that lasted weeks. What if I'm like my father? He'd asked, pale and shaking. What if I don't know how to be gentle? What if I break them? Then I'll be there to help you learn, Belle had said. We'll figure it out together. Like everything else. Now, 7 months in, they were preparing for a daughter. A daughter who would grow up in a world still full of danger, yes, but also full of love. Who would know her father as both the monster who protected his family with ruthless efficiency and the man who played lullabies on the piano at 3 a.m. when Belle couldn't sleep. Lorenzo entered the study, moving to stand behind her, his hands joining hers on her stomach. She's kicking, Belle said. I know. I can feel her. Wonder colored his voice. Strong. Like her mother. Stubborn. Like her father. They stood together, watching the sunset, feeling their daughter move between them, a life they'd created from love and hope and the courage to choose each other over safety. I have something for you, Lorenzo said. He handed her a worn leather journal. Belle opened it, found pages filled with Lorenzo's bold handwriting. What is this? Letters. To our daughter. About her mother. About the woman who saved my life in more ways than one. About the bartender who slipped me a note and changed everything. He rested his chin on her shoulder. I want her to know your story, Belle. I want her to know how brave you are. How strong. How you survived the worst things life could throw at you and still chose to love. Still chose hope. Belle's eyes filled with tears. Lorenzo. And he pulled out a second journal, this one new, the pages blank. This is for you. To write your own story. However you want to tell it. For our daughter. For yourself. For the future. Belle held both journals, overwhelmed by the gesture. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For loving me. For giving me a reason to be better. For, his voice caught. For giving me a family again. I thought that part of my life was over. I thought I'd destroyed any chance at happiness. But you. We saved each other, Belle said, turning in his arms. That's what we do. We save each other. They kissed, soft and sweet, their daughter moving between them like a blessing. Outside, the world continued its dangerous dance. Rival families plotted. Enemies planned. Threats emerged and were dealt with. The life they'd chosen was never safe, never easy. But it was theirs. And they built something beautiful from the wreckage of their broken pasts. The day their daughter was born was both the most terrifying and the most joyful day of Lorenzo's life. He held Belle's hand through 18 hours of labor, watched her fight and struggle in triumph, and when the doctor finally placed a tiny screaming bundle in his arms, he wept. She's perfect, he said, his voice breaking. Belle, she's perfect. What should we name her? Belle asked, exhausted but radiant. Lorenzo looked down at his daughter, at her dark hair and gray eyes and perfect tiny fingers. Hope, he said. Her name is Hope. Because that's what she was. What Belle had given him. What they built together from nothing but courage and love and the choice to face the darkness together. Hope. 5 years after that day in the Crimson Lounge, when a bartender slipped a note to a Mafia boss and changed both their lives forever. Belle sat in the music room, watching Lorenzo teach Hope to play piano. Their daughter, now 4 years old, with her father's eyes and her mother's courage, sat on the bench beside Lorenzo, her small fingers finding the keys under his patient guidance. Like this, Papa? She asked in the mixture of English and Italian she'd picked up from the household. Exactly like that, Piccola. You're a natural. Belle's hand rested on her stomach again, another surprise, another blessing. A son, this time. Due in 4 months. 2 children. A family. A life filled with love and danger and impossible choices, but also music and laughter and hope. Victor appeared in the doorway. Boss. Miss, he corrected himself. Mrs. Volkov. We have the quarterly reports ready when you are. We'll be there in a moment, Lorenzo said, not looking away from Hope. After Victor left, Belle moved to the piano, sat on Hope's other side. Their daughter looked up at her, smiled. Mama, will you sing? What do you want to hear? The one about the brave lady and the strong man who saved each other. Belle and Lorenzo exchanged glances. How do you know that story? Lorenzo asked. Katia tells me. She says you and Mama are the bravest people she knows. That you chose love when everyone said to choose fear. Katia talks too much, Lorenzo said, but he was smiling. Is it true? Hope asked. Did you choose love? Belle took her daughter's hand, then Lorenzo's. Yes, she said. We chose love. Even when it was dangerous. Even when it was hard. Even when everyone said we shouldn't. We chose each other. And we'd choose it again, Lorenzo added. Every single time. Hope considered this seriously. When I grow up, I want to be brave like you. I want to choose love too. You already are brave, Piccola, Lorenzo said. You're the bravest thing I've ever had a hand in creating. They sat together at the piano, a family built from broken pieces, held together by love and hope and the courage to keep choosing each other. Lorenzo began to play. Belle sang. Hope joined in with her small, sweet voice. And in that moment, everything that had come before, the violence and fear, the loss and pain, the impossible choices and narrow escapes, all of it led to this. To a family. To love. to hope. Outside, the sun set on another day in their dangerous world. But inside, in the music room where Lorenzo kept his soul, three voices rose in harmony. Singing of courage and love and the choice to face the darkness together. Singing of a bartender who'd slipped a note to a stranger and saved more than just his life. Singing of a mafia boss who'd grabbed her wrist and found his redemption in her eyes. Singing of hope. Always, always hope. Belle Morrison slipped Lorenzo Volkov a note warning him of poison, and he grabbed her wrist instead of running, a split-second choice that changed two broken lives forever. Their story proves that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose love when the world tells us to choose fear. Sometimes saving someone else is how we save ourselves. What choice would you make? Would you slip that note to a dangerous stranger? Would you grab the hand of someone trying to save you? Would you choose love over safety? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear how this story moved you. And if Belle and Lorenzo's journey touched your heart, let me know.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.